I am really excited and honored to turn this next hour over to Jara Metter, so she can share with you some fabulous information. I talked about it in the first session this morning, the importance of the federal community of practice, and I think you are about to see that in action. Jara?
Thank you so much, Lynn. And thank you to the rest of the NASA team, the NASA family, for giving us this incredible opportunity to convene with you, to celebrate with you, and to open the door to share some knowledge from our amazing prize leads across the federal government ecosystem. I'm Jara Metter. I'm the director of challenge.gov, a program at the General Services Administration. In this session, you're going to gain insight into the various approaches that the different federal agencies are using to source innovation through prize competitions, challenges, and crowdsourcing. We're going to begin with a few lightning talks from our amazing panelists, and then we'll follow it up with some time for you to ask your important questions and to gain insight from this crowd. But let me first begin by introducing the lineup of the panelists. And also along the way, if you have questions, please put them into the chat window. And at the end of our session, Lynn will be moderating the Q&A and teeing up those questions, hopefully in the order that they were received. Okay, the first in our lineup today is going to be Meredith Perry from the U.S. Agency for International Development. Meredith is an open innovation advisor in the Innovation Technology and Research Hub of USAID's Development, Democracy, and Innovation Bureau. We'll follow Meredith with Jen Beardsley from the Bureau of Reclamation. She serves as the Prize Competitions Program Administrator, and she oversees the development and implementation of the Research and Development Office's portfolio of prize competitions. After that will be Kristen Honey. She's the Chief Data Scientist and Executive Director of Innovation X in the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. After that will be Heather Evans from NIST. She's the Liaison and Senior Technology Advisor to the Office of the Secretary at the Department of Commerce. And in her role, she covers a variety of NIST topics, including technical standards, cybersecurity, and emerging technologies. After Heather, we will have Jen Garson from the Department of Energy. Jen is the Acting Director of the Water Power Technologies Office at the U.S. Department of Energy. In the past 3 years, she's led some of the office's key activities and initiatives, like the Powering the Blue Economy Initiative, and she also leads a portfolio of prizes and interagency grants, among other programs. But first, I'd like to give a brief overview of challenge.gov, what we're doing at GSA, and some insight into how we all came to know this amazing lineup of panelists from the community of practice. As you may know, the passage of the America Competes Reauthorization Act over a decade ago legitimately granted prize authority to the head of every federal agency. And what we saw with the passage of this act is that it really catalyzed the broad spread use of prize competitions as a form of public engagement across the federal government. The act also cemented a role for GSA in supporting and facilitating the use of prize competitions across government. In response to the opportunity that was created by Competes, GSA established the challenge.gov program. The M1011 memo formally mandated that GSA would stand up a web presence within 120 days of the issuance of that memo. GSA's answer to that was challenge.gov. And in the past decade of challenge.gov, what we've seen is that this platform has served as the central hub for all federally sponsored prize competitions. Agencies are using the challenge.gov platform to engage the public in problem solving. In fact, 1 month ago, almost exactly, we launched the latest iteration of the challenge.gov platform. What we're seeing already in this short month is a tremendous level of engagement from the public And also we're seeing that prize managers, challenge managers across government are able to take ownership of their content and their own forms of public engagement through this platform. And so we're really excited. But in the past decade of challenge.gov, on that platform, we've seen over 1,300 prize competitions and challenges that have been hosted. We've also seen that these challenges have ranged the spectrum of federal agencies. Over 100 different federal agencies and offices have posted their activities on challenge.gov. And through these activities, they've made awards in excess of $350 million of monetary and non-monetary awards out to the public. And they've engaged leading edge researchers and individuals that normally do not engage with the federal government. Aside from providing platform infrastructure of challenge.gov, we also have a program side. And the program side really works side by side with federal agencies, with NASA, with the federal practitioners across government to answer questions, to convene, to really be that bridge that allows you all to know each other and to form meaningful collaborations and forms of knowledge sharing. Challenge.gov has managed the federal community of practice over the past decade. And in that time, we've seen the community really grow tremendously. Currently, there are over 800 members across federal government from, I believe it's 46 different agencies. And whenever we've reached out and gotten to know the members of the community, we've seen that they really do represent a broad swath of who's out there. We have members who are prize leads in their job description, those who have run one or a few competitions, ones that have run many competitions, and also those who are interested in this methodology but have not yet employed its use in their daily programming. And we're really excited about the power of a community of practice to bring people together so that we can be a force multiplier effect for growth and innovation adoption and programming across government. Today, I've invited 5 open innovation leaders who are active members of this community. We've invited them here to share insights about their great work, and I invited each of them here specifically because I believe that the models for open innovation and prize competitions and challenges that they're deploying at their agencies really do represent the future and innovation and how the government engages the public. And so it is my pleasure to invite the first panelist, Meredith Perry from USAID, to present about her amazing work. Over to you, Meredith.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm afraid I'm going to need to cut out right after this, but that's only because I'm collaborating with another challenge practitioner at the Millennium Challenge Corporation. But just to start, if I wanted to say that I'm here today, in part because USAID and NASA share some common ground, and that common ground is because we both have a last mile problem. Now, for USAID and NASA, that looks very different. If you're looking at USAID's last mile, it looks a lot like this, albeit with a lot less nice bike. If you're looking at NASA, just to get to the moon, to say nothing about the explorations occurring outside our solar system, NASA has to travel 238,900 miles. But while USAID's remit is global and NASA's remit is universal, our mandates force our competitors to design in resource-constrained environments where the supply chains can get attenuated. And because of this common foundation and being part of the federal challenges and prizes community with them, USAID regularly collaborates with NASA on predicting famines and the future of food. And we rely on CoECI's leadership in supporting colleagues considering open innovation competitions, the contracting mechanisms and legal authorities that support this work. So congratulations, CoECI. It's a joy to celebrate you today. As I mentioned, underpinning all of this is the legal authority for innovation competitions. You'll hear our other federal colleagues talk about using the America Competes Act. And Jared just celebrated it. And now I'm about to say that, unfortunately, America Competes with its requirement that only US citizens and residents are eligible for prizes. It doesn't work for USAID. USAID's mission is to support a free, peaceful, and prosperous world. And when it comes to designing and delivering prizes, practically that means using prizes to inject innovation into fragile systems and weak markets. And we believe that the people that understand best where innovation is needed in these systems and how to deliver it often live outside the United States. In 2016, USAID received our own prize authority, the Innovation Incentive Award Authority. This authority is more limited than competes. For example, our prizes cannot exceed $100,000. Nonetheless, they have one crucial expansion. USAID can make no strings attached awards to foreign individuals and organizations. Now, that $100,000 may sound impossibly limiting, but it's part of USAID's broader strategy to have sustainable, data-driven, and locally led innovation in FUSR programming. Prizes are just one of many innovation tools, such as challenges, co-creation, systems practices, research partnerships, and user-centered design that we mix and match to ensure that our innovations are positioned for uptake. I want to tell you a story that exemplifies how we use innovative methods to build the connective tissue for bigger, more comprehensive programming. As I mentioned, USAID deals with large and complicated supply chains around the world, including those for family planning supplies. Clinics stock different kinds of family planning products to meet different patient needs. For example, look at this road. Many people weigh whether it's possible to make several trips a year to a clinic to get monthly pills or hormonal birth control injections in places where roads may be regularly impassable or unsafe. If the clinic is out of IUDs on the day a patient is there and ready to get one, what happens? On the other hand, when there's an oversupply, supplies can expire and waste US taxpayer dollars. The Commodity Security and Logistics team in USA's Global Health Bureau wanted to test whether artificial intelligence-based forecasting models could outperform the pen and paper calculations used by health facilities in low and middle income countries where they stock supplies. Now, to test this, working in partnership with USAID's Côte d'Ivoire office, Côte d'Ivoire's Ministry of Health, and implementing partners, we assembled 3 years of data and designed a competition that involved $30,000 in prizes to any individual or organization that could develop the highest performing forecasting model. We had a co-creation activity, and then we issued a grant to implement the forecasting model in Côte d'Ivoire. Now, why did we decide to link a prize to a challenge grant? Well, we suspected that many talented modelers aren't qualified to implement in the field themselves. Similarly, there are large international development implementing partners that may not be great at modeling, but they have extensive field experience and relationships. We wanted all competitors to develop models so that they would understand the resources and the skills entailed. So we released the prize and then reviewed the models. And sure enough, our winner and our first runner-up were neither interested nor capable of implementing their models. The winner, Inventec, is a multi-million-dollar Taiwanese company that builds laptops and Fitbits. And they entered the competition to demonstrate their mastery of supply chain forecasting that extends beyond technology. They didn't want a USAID grant. Our runner-up is an Indonesian gentleman named Rashid Rida, who does modeling competitions for fun. Normally, as an individual, he wouldn't have been eligible to compete, but USAID's prize authority enabled him to win a prize. Then we convened experts in modeling and in Côte d'Ivoire's health systems with our top 10 modelers and the organizations which submitted grant applications. We wanted to make sure our field grant competitors learned what's needed for a strong model, but also had the partnerships, the factors, and the systems in Côte d'Ivoire that would ensure their model success in the field. Michael Conan from Côte d'Ivoire was one of the participating modelers. As an individual, he wouldn't have been eligible to compete for a USAID grant, but competing in the prize pulled him into our orbit. And by the end of the co-creation, Michael was bid on every grant proposal, providing much needed local expertise. MacroEyes, the grant winner, just began implementing their model. And together we're learning whether models outperform pen and paper calculations, and if so, the conditions that need to be in place to successfully implement this across all of Côte d'Ivoire's health supply chains or in other USAID supply chains in other countries. So budget-wise, this effort is small. It's less than $225,000. But the punchline is that USAID has allocated $16 billion for USAID's health supply chains in 40 countries. And the intelligent forecasting competition is a test case informing whether and how forecasting models might transform USAID's global health supply chains efforts. And just one example of how we use our very modest prize authority to make large programs more effective, innovative, data-driven, and locally led. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Meredith. Thank you so much for sharing and tying the mission and commonalities to NASA in their work as well. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jen Beardsley of the Bureau of Reclamation. Over to you, Jen.
Thank you, Tara. Hi, I'm Jen Beardsley. I administer the prize competitions program for the Bureau of Reclamation. Our mission, and let's go ahead and advance the slide. The Bureau of Reclamation, just a little background, we're a smaller agency located within the Department of the Interior. We only operate in the 17 Western states, so you'll see that highlighted on the map. And our mission is focused on generating power and delivering water, managing water. Next slide, please. So prize competitions in reclamation are young, they're in their infancy. We partnered up with USAID with our first USAID with our first competition back in 2014, 2015. That really got us kick-started in moving forward in prize competitions. So we developed a program, got it organized, and we managed it by theme areas. But since that 2015 timeframe, we've really taken off and have launched 32 competitions since then and awarded over $4.5 million to many solvers over that timeframe. Next slide, please. So I just thought I'd walk through our program a little bit, give you a little bit of insight into the variety of competitions we've done and how we've advanced our competitions and our program over that time. So we organized by theme area because that helped us keep connected with our mission and ensuring that our prize competitions are helping us advance on that mission. So under the water theme area, we focus on water management, water supplies through better forecasting of what might be coming in as water, right? And treatment, can we stretch supplies? So right now we have a couple of competitions currently running. One is called More Water, Less Concentrate. This builds off of our very first competition with the USAID, focusing on treating brackish groundwater and stretching supplies where supplies are limited and we need additional sources. So we're running with this one where we have solvers currently developing prototypes, and we will be testing those prototypes. In the picture on the top right shows the facility where our solvers are going to bring their prototypes and run those with us. That is our Yuma desalting plant. So a different location than what we've worked with in the past. Another one that we currently have running is related to stream flow forecasts. Understanding and knowing what our rivers and streams are doing is super important to reclamation, because then we know how to manage our reservoirs. We can operate our reservoir systems more efficiently, or be able to open up the gates and evacuate space if we have high flows coming in that were unexpected, and hopefully manage some floods downstream, reducing potential damages. So we have the stream flow forecast rodeo that's going now. It's actually just wrapped up. So we wanted people to see if they could outperform our experts. Exciting here is on December 7th, we are planning to launch a new competition related to snow water equivalents. We rely a lot upon the reservoir of snow and how it stores water, so we can anticipate operations and manage our facilities for efficient power production. So we are ready to kick that off and see if people can do better than the state-of-art practice out there now for estimating the content of water within the snow. And then precip measurement, that's another one where we can use some greater accuracy. So that'll be launching sometime hopefully in FY22. Next slide, please. Environment in this area, reclamation's out there. We've got these irrigation canals. We're delivering water. We're managing water through reservoirs and different facilities. So we have a lot of nexus with the environment. So we focus on that nexus to develop some additional competitions. Currently running Guardians of the Reservoir, focused on managing sediment in our reservoirs. So here's a great study on the slide where at Paonia, we built this reservoir in 1961, and then by 2014, it's pretty well full. So we need to learn how to better manage these reservoir sediments, keep them moving, or efficient removals, so we can have that space for what we're charged to do with that water. And then we're also working on a data science, or a data one, to help speed up some of our modeling. We have some big models. It takes a lot of computational power, and some of those models take hours and hours, or if not days, to run. So we have our solvers out there working on that. And then we have a couple of future competitions coming up. So next slide. Infrastructure, that's a big deal for reclamation. We need to make our facilities last as best we can. If we're doing new facilities, let's figure out what's the best state of art we can put in there. So we focus on the physical aspects of reclamation. And one of the things I would say over the life of our program, we've transitioned from ideas on paper, which are, you know, great to have, and it's great for our starting points in research, or to get ourselves refreshed on some things we're already solved out. But we've moved into prototype top competitions. We have a handful of competitions listed here where we're focused on reducing the rust, or trying to make our steel structures in the water last longer. Canal safety is a big deal. I show a picture on the bottom right. We currently have our solvers on canal safety with testing there. So we're running in our hydraulics lab. We're actually installed their 1/6 scale solutions. You can't quite see it on here, but in a constructive flume, and we're testing it and seeing how it does, and picking up the 3D printed dummy, or how it manages debris coming down a canal. So we're very focused on that. Also on detection aspects with, you know, changes in materials being used. So using composites in different water features. How do we know when it's going to have a defect and it might fail? So next slide, please. So just a few observations that I thought I'd share from my experience. It's a continuous process for us to continue identifying potential competitions, and it's very fluid for reclamation. Our program is ever evolving, and NASA CoECI has been key to us in advancing our competitions, advancing what we can do, and finding this great solver pool that has continued to grow. And then the last is collaboration is vital for us. Partners, additional subject matter experts. It takes a community to win competition. So I think that's the end.
Thanks so much, Jen.
Yeah.
I love how reclamation opens up your science and your testing facilities to the crowd. It's such powerful work. Now I'd like to turn it over to Kristen Honey.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, and congratulations, NASA, on celebrating 10 years of leadership in the prizes and challenges space. We could not do this without you. And thank you, Jared, for bringing us all together, and huge thanks to GSA, the entire interagency community, and everyone here. Super excited to share everything that's been happening at HHS. And I should say that this is not about me or our office Innovation X. This is an 80,000 person, very federated agency with hundreds of innovators across the department who are moving mountains and doing transformative innovation. And I just happen to be the messenger who has the opportunity to speak about some of their work, but by no means am I the innovative driver behind many of the programs that you'll hear about. So HHS, Health and Human Services, we're, as I mentioned, a large agency. I think on the slide we saw earlier, we had 137 members in the GSA challenge.gov community. Looked like it was the most of any agency. And we also have the most of any agency in terms of number of competitions reported, just because we're so large. And we're doing it across the entire department. So most years, as an agency across everyone, we're doing about 20 to 30 active competitions in any one year. At least that was the average since 2014. It continues to grow though. And so it could grow to more and more prizes as more parts of the department become aware of the methods. And also, in addition to the number of prizes and the different parts of the agency engaged, we are increasing the purses that go along with many of the competitions. Sometimes we give out competitions for major prizes, sometimes they're small, but the monetary purse amount has increased from around 46,000 in 2014, and 5 years later was up to 130,000 for the average prize award, and continues to grow to the point where we have multi-million-dollar prizes today. And this is all built on the foundations and the tools and methods that are available on challenge.gov and that all of you have been using. So to highlight high level some of the big initiatives that we've used under Competes. You've probably heard of Kidney X, which is a Kidney X Innovation Accelerator, a $25 million public-private partnership. My colleague Sandeep Patel in BARDA, which is a different part of the department, called Biomedical Advanced Research Development Authority, launched this massive partnership to transform kidney care and really engage new minds, fresh minds and thinking in an area where the market had stagnated for 40 years. Dialysis and how we treat late-stage kidney care is almost the same today as it was in the 1970s and 80s. So when you have market stagnation like that, you need radical disruption. You need fresh minds. If the conventional approach was going to solve this, it would not be the problem at the scale it's at today. And so that scale of success is really what HHS is leaning into now. And following the Kidney X model, last year announced the world's largest, biggest public-private partnership for Lyme disease, a tick-borne illness. Those little tiny ticks carry a lot of diseases. And Lyme is the most common vector-borne disease in the United States, affecting almost 500,000 Americans every single year. Similar to kidney care, the diagnostics for Lyme disease and the treatment, the antibiotics, are unchanged since the 1980s. So that market stagnation is a real problem. So we launched a series of prize challenges, and we're going to do a multi-phase, multi-year innovation community building in that space. But that's just a tiny little bucket, drop in the bucket. We have so many other parts across the department. NIH and National Institutes of Health and Taylor Gilliland has been an amazing leader in this space, and he's wrangled all of our National Institutes of Health open innovation efforts, prize, challenges, crowdsourcing, citizen science, all of NIH's coordinator because of Taylor's hard work. And he's now pushing the envelope in diagnostics, technology, and innovation now with a different part of NIH and more of an engineering division. We also have CDC prizes, challenges, FDA. I mentioned BARDA. We have Centers for Medicare, Medicaid, the Administration for Children and Families. So prizes and challenges happening everywhere. So how do we encourage this innovation? The role of what my team has done, and we recently rebranded in the past year. In 2020, up until 2020, our innovation shop was part of the HHS Office of the Chief Technology Officer. In this past year, we were able to spin off and create our own team called Innovation X, and we sit in the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health. And in that space, what we've been doing now is Innovation X, and before is HHS CTO office, is pull together the tools and resources in one hopefully easy to find place, branding it open innovation, and then putting a spotlight on it, encouraging all parts of the department to use them, and then providing technical guidance or some innovation expertise so that people across the department can adopt and employ the methods themselves and customize them to advance their own mission space. So we run very few prizes as a team, but we often are consulting others so that they can run their own. And one of the great things in that is that, if you put a spotlight on things, empower people with resources, give them some top cover, leadership cover, and get out of the way, it is amazing what they will deliver. So I'll close on a couple observations that we've had in this space. And one is, that the best challenges, all our biggest successes, they'll do multiple things at once. So we have a massive grand prize challenge. We're advancing science and technology in that specific, kidney care or Lyme disease space. And at the same time that we're, encouraging technologists and scientists to focus efforts there, we are creating a community. We're building momentum. We are educating people around the issues of kidney care and these complex health issues. So think of prizes, challenges, innovation. The biggest successes do multiple things at once. And then the other observation that I've really had over time is that the best innovation comes when you have incredibly diverse teams. And that diversity and radically different views strengthens the ultimate outcome. So you have more robust solutions at the end. However, you have to practice patience and be okay with discomfort and uncertainty. Because when you get really, really diverse groups together, completely different disciplines, we're almost speaking different languages. So you have that storming part of group forming. It's the storming, forming, norming, and then then you're really performing and thriving. So that storming part, if you really focus on diversity with people thinking outside the box, can be pretty long and sometimes uncomfortable and sometimes feel not productive. But if you sit with that and you get the right team and learn to speak to each other, that diversity leads to way better outcomes, more robust than any one group could be alone. So getting uncomfortable in uncertainty and practicing patience while moving really rapidly and agile and the innovation ecosystem, it sounds like a bit of a it's two opposites, but then when you pair them together, the patience and the ability to be okay without clear metrics or moving forward to get the right team, then after investing in that time, amazing things happen. And with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Jara, so we can hear from NIST. Thank you.
Such powerful words about the power of diversity and inclusion and reducing bias and participation in competitions. Thank you so much, Kristen Honey. Now I'll turn it over to Heather Evans from NIST.
Okay, but first, let me just say it's unfair to have to follow that. So, I mean, I'm going to do my best. But I'm hoping that most of my NASA friends on the call are already familiar with NIST. And our mission itself is pretty broad, as you can see I put it on the slide, because it's really about, driving U.S. innovation and competitiveness. And we really rely on our workforce of scientists and engineers working in our laboratories to accomplish our mission. And so we've actually been doing what I guess you could call a challenge for many decades. Even back in the late 70s, early 80s, we launched a public challenge for a data encryption algorithm that would then become the worldwide standard for computer security. We've done similar types of algorithm competitions since then. But we didn't really offer prize money because that wasn't really even on our radar. It wasn't even something we thought was possible. Until, of course, the competes authorization that Jara mentioned. We've also, because we have that workforce of technical folks, they do from time to time serve as advisors doing work with or for other parts of government. So back in, I think around 2013, some of our roboticists worked with DARPA to help them come up with the metrics to actually score the robotics challenge that DARPA was running. And so, we've always kind of been able to lend that capacity, but when the prize authority was announced, I was at NIST just a couple of years by then, and I wanted to try to figure out how we could use it. Because one thing to have a law, it's another thing to figure out how you're actually supposed to use it. So it took us a little bit of working through a lot of different challenges we can talk about later. But we started with our big first challenges in 2015. One was an app challenge, but the one that probably got the most attention is up there on the top right, was our head health challenge, which became a pretty high-profile partnership with the National Football League, Under Armour, and GE, where we joined in with them. And that was a big learning lesson for lots of reasons. And here's at the culmination of that, there was actually an event on the Hill where they gave out the big check and all that fun stuff. So that was one of our first kind of very visible things where our labs actually developed some measurements working hand in hand with all the partners and worked very closely with the innovators to help them succeed. And the lower right is just a picture from a face recognition challenge that NIST ran in partnership with IARPA, another example where we have expertise that we lend. And so NIST actually hosted a platform that kind of could take in algorithms for face recognition and score them. So that's another example of sort of working with agencies. On the lower left is an example of this robotics challenge that we've run a few years in a row. So we've been able to sort of cultivate a growing community around this very kind of niche aspect of manufacturing challenge. But I wanted to really just spend a couple more minutes of my time focusing on our most really serious investment in prizes, which is out of our Public Safety Communication Research Program, PSCR. That's that center picture. They are really sort of the home for a lot of this really great work now. We still support challenges out of the laboratories, but it's really this PSCR program that has built a serious capacity to run these kinds of activities. So they built an open innovation team within their PSCR program that has all this capacity to figure out what good problems are. They work with the NIST scientists to identify what challenges there are, and then they create the prize competition. They've developed huge new ways of working with partners from outside, whether those partners provide in-kind donations or whether they're serving as experts. They have navigated all that you can figure out how to navigate to pull things off. And really what they're doing is trying to bring in people with this expertise, like in areas with drones or virtual reality technology, bring them into the challenge space that surrounds the problems that our first responders have. You know, people like the firefighters and the EMTs and the police, you know, when their equipment doesn't work, or in scenarios where the equipment is not yet designed to work. So they've really focused a lot, I would say, on technology demonstration and some on ideation, but they have done a great job trying to build that community, sort of what Kristen was talking about, this longer term community where you're bringing in these innovators and technology experts to the public safety problem space and to all those firefighters and other real world people who have these challenges. So they've, you know, I believe they've completed 14 challenges. They have 6 more current and planned. They've awarded over $4 million. But the coolest thing, I think, is that they've been able to also evolve, and I know some of our other agency friends do this as well, to provide sort of that back end, or I don't know if it's back end, but services after you win the award. So then what happens? So right now, PSCR has now built out ways to continually promote commercialization of those concepts that win or even were just participating in the challenge. So they are providing technical and business assistance, providing ways to have like add-on grants or additional funding, and even this new Pulse Accelerator that has a cohort of about a dozen people that go through all the stages to develop a better business strategy. So I think this now shows that we have this great institutional capability. So we're going to be working really hard to figure out how to leverage that in other parts of our organization. And we really would not be where we are today without NASA CoECI. I can absolutely say that, or also without the challenge.gov community. And so really, really appreciate the chance to be here today. And, you know, one last point is I'm here today from NIST, but I am currently, as Jara mentioned, on this kind of temporary assignment in the Secretary's office. And there are other parts of Commerce that are also really doing great things in this space, including Census and NOAA and many others. And so we would love to work more with NASA. And thank you again. And I'll turn it over to Jen Garson to close us out.
Hey everybody, thanks to the NASA and GSA team for inviting me to participate today. And I think a lot of the things that I'll touch on in terms of how we have thought about structuring prize competitions within the U.S. Department of Energy is reflective of some of the ways in which our other agency friends have also been thinking about the role of prizes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the U.S. Department of Energy, we do a whole lot of things, but most of our prize work has been with our applied energy offices. So I am in the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, which concentrates on energy efficiency, renewable power, and sustainable transportation. We have other offices within DOE that have been looking at the utilization of prizes, including ARPA-E, the Office of Electricity, and now the Office of Fossil Energy. We also work very closely with our Office of Technology Transitions, which under the Energy Act of 2020 has now been charged with actually standing up a prize center of excellence. So similar to what NASA has had, and something that I've been advocating for quite some time within DOE, really trying to have a centralized set of resources available to our staff who are really thinking about prizes and competitions. But over the last 3 years, under the banner of this American Made Challenge platform, which you can find at americanmadechallenge.org, we've ramped up our prize portfolio pretty dramatically, growing from a handful of prizes to now over $100 million of investment in prizes, including distributing more than $65 million in prize funding. So the way that we think about prizes within DOE is a couple different aspects. You know, we think about it as a mechanism to both create businesses and generate concepts. So whether that's through collegiate competitions, like our Marine Energy Collegiate Competition that's been right now, or a new hydrogen business case competition, as well as even trying to generate concepts for advanced manufacturing applied to hydropower. Additionally, we recently relaunched our Energy Tech University Prize, which is looking at incentivizing a whole host of both business concepts and entrepreneurial concepts in a broad range of energy that's being administered by our Office of Technology Transitions. But really at that concept and ideation stage is really a critical factor for prizes. The other piece of this, it's not on the slide, is we've also been running for now several years our Solar Energy Prize, which takes concepts all the way from concepts into fully formed businesses with even agreements with external partners, but it's a way to actually catalyze business growth through the use of prizes. One of the ways that we've been doing that, both from a business formation as well as looking at testing and prototyping, is building out a network capacity. So over the last couple of years, we've had this American Made Challenge network, which includes both a series of we call connectors and power connectors. These are incubators, accelerators, investment organizations, national laboratories, and other laboratories who can really help our prize competitors as they go from starting a concept and actually turning it into reality. The other thing that we're trying to do, though, to even expand upon that network is our recently announced the Inclusive Energy Innovation Prize. This is really leading into the need for supporting more organizational capacity at these types of organizations to really increase the level of effort at attracting more diverse entrepreneurs and startups into our portfolio, both through our prizes, but then in general within the energy landscape. So that we actually have that open right now, where we're going to be funding through a two-stage effort, $2.5 million in funding towards organizations that are focused on increasing access to underserved communities, really trying to increase diversity and representation within our entrepreneurial landscape, and really helping us build out that network for prizes and for other mechanisms through the American Made Challenge platform. But then in addition to doing concepts and business ideas, we've been doing a lot of work on prototyping and testing within DOE, thinking about the utilization of prizes to run through a multi-stage competition framework to bring ideas all the way from design on paper through modeling and into actually doing real-world testing. A couple of examples that I have here is our perovskite prize, which we've been doing, that's really trying to validate perovskite, which is a more novel approach to solar, through a prize competition. We also have two different desalination competitions that we're running. One is our Solar Desalination Prize, which is looking at the application of concentrated solar power to produce clean water. And then our Waves to Water Prize, which is just about to go into its final stage. We've had it open for about 3 years. We've taken designs all the way from concept. We're going to be testing these things in an open water environment this April off the coast of Jeanette's Pier. And what we've seen even through the development of testing and demonstration through prize competitions is, of the 5 finalists that we have in that Waves to Water Prize, not a single one of them actually had received federal funding from DOE before. So it really opens the aperture and allows for new competitors who have ideas that are completely outside, or in this case, inside the box. They all have to fit inside a shipping container to really thrive in a prize environment. And we do a lot of this work with other interagency friends. So Jen Beardsley and I have coordinated a couple different prizes. One was our Fish Protection Prize. It's actually built off of a earlier concept competition that the Bureau had run. And then what we did is created a prize competition that went through both a concept stage. We paired up the concept developers actually with the national laboratories to have 50 hours of service to do further assessment of their work. And then the prize actually resulted in both a combination of cash prizes as well as access to our facilities. We have some world-class facilities at, say, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory that can do validation of how much measures of protection you can get through these types of solutions. But that's not even where that type of work stops. For us, even for DOE, fielding some of these ideas through prizes that ultimately result in some sort of testing or validation then feeds into some of our other work, like our grants and cooperative agreements. Can we actually build in some of the technical capabilities and testing and then feed it into, say, our large multi-million-dollar solicitations? Another prize that we ran with interagency counterparts was on our Ocean Observing Prize. So we've been doing this with NOAA over the last couple of years, really working at how can you pair marine energy with ocean observing systems to provide more persistent power to be able to observe more parts of the ocean. And what we did in partnership with NOAA was actually get a lot of the requirements, both the physical engineering and customer kind of requirements from NOAA and built that directly into the prize competition, so that we're trying to ensure that through our prizes that have more substantial funding, we understand who the off-taker is and how we can actually build that into the review criteria, so that we're not just using prizes to incentivize ideas, but ideas that really have commercial application or real world value. But in addition to our other federal agency partners, one of the things that we've been trying to explore more within the context of DOE is soliciting sponsorship or partnerships with external organizations, both through donation or philanthropic giving, or even just donation of services. An example here is DSA Ocean is going to be applying some of their methods to our ocean observing prize competitors to help them do further validation. Janicki Industries is a design for manufacturing firm that's doing design for manufacturing assessments of our waste to water prize competitors. Then the International Desalination Association is working both with our solar and our waves to water prize competitors to both amplify what they're doing, introduce them to the larger desalination community, and really start to build bridges between what we're trying to do through the prizes with ultimate end users. But then we also have entered into partnership agreements. So this is more where we would fund organizations to help us on implementation. So an example here is the Coastal Studies Institute, who is going to be our open water test partner at Jeanette's Pier in North Carolina. And they've been involved with us even on the feasibility of, say, like moorings and configurations for at the site, and working to understand, and help our competitors understand what it means to actually put things in the water. This is an experienced group who's actually deployed a ton of different ocean observing equipment, who has active buoys that are out in the water. And so that real world application of both their services of having a test site, but also the experience that they can bring for our competitors to understand the operations in an open water environment is critical. So, we've had, I think, now more than 21 prizes that have been run over the last just couple of years, and it seems to be growing, which I'm very happy about, because I'm now at the point where I'm happy that I don't know every single prize that's going up on a prize platform. But really, we're really using it as a mechanism, drawing on the opportunity for it being an easier entry point for new ideas and new concepts, and constructing prizes in a way that helps us to de-risk technologies and applications while still trying to keep the philosophy of open competition, open innovation, and that anybody with a good idea should have the chance to succeed. So, if any of you are ever working on things that relate to energy, know that we've now mastered the ability to do interagency agreements with other federal partners. And we're always looking to leverage the assets that we have specifically at our labs to help support any of our other federal agency friends who might be running prizes and competitions. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jara.
Wow. What I love about everything you said here, Jen, is that that what you're doing exemplifies excellence in partnerships, excellence in engaging leading edge researchers and companies, also using prize competitions to move forward innovation development along the pipeline, where we're not talking about innovation theater, we're talking about actual impact. And I applaud your work. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to ask the first question to the panel. And then while our panelists are responding, I encourage the crowd to also pop questions that you may have into the chat window. And also, Lynn, at any point, if you want to ask a question after the next one, please feel free to do so. So I'm going to open this question to anyone on the panel. And the question is, really centered around, we all know that innovation in government comes with its own set of challenges. And can you share any insight into the specific hurdles you have faced while trying to mature and scale the use of competitions at your agency? Go for it.
So I think actually for all of our NASA friends online, the fact that you all have CoECI is a real testament to the commitment by the agency to provide centralized resources. I think one of the biggest challenges that prize administrators or people who have a prize concept really face is, how do you find the internal resources necessary to design and implement your prize competition? How do you persuade others to pursue a new mechanism that they might not be comfortable with? And three, how do you understand how to navigate the bureaucracy? Within DOE, we're still working on creating centralized resources, but it's through demonstration and commitment and looking at our past precedents of what the outcomes have been that is way more useful now than it was, say, 7 or 8 years ago when, I think many of us who are on the line who've been in the trenches for the last decade were just trying to run around saying prizes matter. And I think what now you're seeing is a real maturation of this as a commonly used tool in government. But that being said, there are always new ways to use prizes that help achieve your different goals and objectives. And so I would encourage you to look across the federal landscape too at how others have implemented prizes to achieve certain programmatic objectives. Like when we were designing the desal prize for waste to water, we went to JERA and USAID and the Bureau of Reclamation understand how they had previously run desal prizes and what we could learn. So I think if you're trying something new, I would encourage you to also look back at some of what other federal agencies have done. People might have tried a model that you've used before, which can help influence your decision makers, but also open you up to additional resources in this fabulous community where all of us are always seemingly willing to talk about both what we have accomplished and how to use prizes more effectively. So traditionally, it's organizational structure that's the biggest impediment, but I think for NASA CoECI, you have wonderful resources at your disposal and fabulous mechanisms to even enter into agreements. So break the toolbox wide open to figure out what you can do. And I apologize, I'm going to have to run in a second to go talk to House appropriators, but stay on for another minute.
+1 to taking bright spots from other parts of the department or other agencies, and challenge.gov is a great source of that. And everyone here, thank you for your example. And then serving that up to the lawyers. And the other advice I received, and I found it to work well in the innovation space, is never ask the general counsel or federal lawyers, can you do something? Ask them how you can do something. Because if you ask can, their brain will instantly go to 20 ways why they should say no. If you ask them how, and then you serve up some case study examples, they'll start thinking about all the alternative pathways that maybe get to yes. So that little bit of how is a tip that I've used a lot.
But in anticipation of this conversation today, I talked with some of the people who are really actively working in that public safety program, and the number one thing they pointed out was basically what Jen just said too, which is this challenge of senior management buy-in and consistent buy-in, and valuing that this is the good path to go down. And especially when there's a new thing, kind of what Kristen was saying, how do we partner with some type of entity we've never partnered with before? And in getting stuck in various places, or having to consistently sort of keep approaching that and build up that kind of senior management awareness. But she also made a really good point that NASA does not have that same challenge necessarily, although you might have some challenges in the middle level where you might need to get your immediate team on board. But I think we have so many great case studies now that hopefully we can move past some of that lack of information. So, but that was the biggest bottleneck that we identified.
And I'll just add one more thought. One of the experiences we've had is we have a great number of subject matter experts, and it's always exciting to get them to go work in this space of innovation. But there was a little bit of a culture shift that we needed to do to say it's okay to let someone else tell you a new idea. So as we scaled up our competitions and we needed to get more people into the mix, continuing to bring in the subject matter experts and bring in that diversity of thoughts as we planned competition has been a little bit of a challenge, and then making sure we get the right timing of it all. It's been great.
Hey, Jera, I'm going to jump in here because, gosh, this has been so fabulous, just so fabulous. For us, it's interesting to hear Jen mention that we did have the resource of having the people in place and the platforms in place. I think for us, our biggest struggle really was the budgets weren't in place. The organizations who wanted to be challenge owners still had to find their own funding. I give Amy Kaminsky a shout out here because she carved out a budget, and we do this yearly crowdsourcing contenders call now where teams are able, and they're usually teams at the lower level, right, who aren't engaged in that whole how funding is distributed beast that is probably different at every agency, but is probably still the same beast at every agency, right? And getting those teams and offering funding for them to go do this, I think has really turned the tables for us a little bit. And I think for us really, and the next big thing is where people are building the ability to do this into their actual budgets to go execute. That to me will be the next major thing that really makes the difference here and moves this beyond, we are still, and hearing what you all are doing, most of which I'm available, it's still so incredible to see, because I know there was a time, and I was going to bring this up because most of us, I think, lived it. Heather, I know me, you, and Jara lived this. The fear of the administration change, which is always in government, right? How is an administration change? For us at NASA, it's just right. It's incredible. Our priorities shift, everything shifts. But in this instance, I just feel like we were so mature, everything was going that we just kept going. The administration change really didn't affect much, I think, for most of the agencies, maybe for some. But I think that was also a major telltale sign of the success that we've had as a community in this area.
I couldn't agree more. And even the 116th Congress, there were over 30 different pieces of legislation introduced that specifically mention prize competitions and challenges. And so I think the foundational work of NASA, Tournament Lab, CoECI, making it possible for all agencies. And then going to John's great question that he put into the chat window, I really think that what agencies have done, the leaders here represented on this panel, is they've done good work, and they've engaged solvers, they've created impact, they've really demonstrated that open innovation, prize competitions, crowdsourcing are tools, sourcing tools in the toolbox that can be used effectively for the right purpose in federal agencies. And so
Jara, though, I'm looking at the question, and for me, I think one of the biggest hurdles is kind of what Lynn was just talking about, which is, I like that song.
Where's the mute police?
I don't know. No, I was just going to say, I think money is a challenge, though. Dedicating resources to it is an ongoing thing that I would love to see, because frankly, the examples I talked about from NIST, that public safety had a very specific pot of money that had to be spent in a certain number of years. And so they had both a time incentive, but also a resource, they were resource rich. And that's been one of the challenges, is to try to explain to other parts of NIST, hey, I know you have this many dollars, you should spend some of them on this other thing that you're not familiar with. And so I think anything we can do to sort of solidify resources or make them more centrally available, we would probably see more prizes in my organization.
Yeah, and one other challenge I'll mention in response to John's question, and I don't have an answer, and I can't say it's the toughest hurdle, but it's one that I'm struggling with now, and I would love to open it up to this group and work with other agencies who maybe have done this. When I think of the work we're doing in open innovation, we have all these methods, we have ideas, we have a culture of how we work in the open. It's transparent, we drive, innovation from open data, open science, open source code, all that good stuff. That's really different from the conventional hierarchical organization that owns certain projects and programs. So I'm finding there's a tension between being super open and sharing everything we know and not having ownership. And success is when other people run it, take with it, and make it their own, versus the metrics of what has this one program done. So if other people have untangled that and found out how to still have those metrics for the immediate office while not owning it and pushing it out to others, I would love to take your tips and tricks and tools there.
Jara, anything you want to say to kind of wrap up this session, because we're rapidly approaching the hour?
One thing that I want to say is, I've been a customer of CoECI back in my days at Veterans Affairs. I've worked with all of the panelists here directly in their good work. So much of of what we've done over the past decade. I wouldn't be here without Jen Gustetic and Kristen Dorgalo in the early days, guiding me through, holding my hand with competition design. I'm really proud of what we've accomplished. I love what the panelists are doing. I love what NASA's doing. We really are a community that's growing this methodology across government. And our potential for growth is really centered in the way we can partner with the vendors who are here participating in the conversation, and our partnerships across federal agencies, and our partnerships with the solvers, and really creating processes that are more equitable and open for collaboration. And so I'm really excited about the future and love the foundation that we've all built together. Thanks for the opportunity to share in the amazing celebration of 10 years with NASA.
A celebration of good government, people. A celebration of good government across the board. Thank you all so much. Man, it's been a journey. And that journey began, I don't know how many of you were on this morning, really with our Innocentive team members who are on here. And so John and Steve, let's jump into it. So John.
Yes.
What was it like, and what happened to create that pilot study that was so profound for us?
Well, thanks, Lynn, and it's an honor to be here. We're humbled. I think all of us would safely say that to be a part of this great accomplishment that you guys built. I remember one of the first times I met Jeff Davis, and if Jeff is on, maybe he'll have a different recollection, but we met down in Houston. We met at a little taco shop to grab some lunch and actually talk business on a napkin. So he was describing what had gone on and his experience with Harvard and MIT and things that he wanted to do. And, you know, and everybody paid for their own lunch, so everything was good. But we had a great conversation just starting to map out what would it look like to change the way government and NASA could do business, and how could this large crowd of people that Innocentive had back in that day contribute to solving problems. So it was a free flow discussion over tacos and a lemonade, I think. And it started this conversation that eventually led to the procurements that came up and the pilot work that we did. And it, like in most cases, you never know the problems that you get, what's going to happen. But from those pilots, and you'll hear a little bit from Steve Domick too about the results from the first pilots we did. It's amazing.
Yeah, Steve, you were the program manager, so why don't you give us your story on what happened here?
Well, it's interesting. It's so fun to be here. I know it was 12 years ago when we started this whole thing, but it feels like it was 12 days ago, to be honest. Some great fond memories. It's one of these things where, you know, John, and I know there's been a lot of discussions. I participated in the morning sessions, you know, talking about the vision and strategy, which was really key and critical. But then once we turned into a pilot program, it was really about, okay, Steve, let's make that vision a reality here. And one of the key things that we did early on, which I think is foundational success, which has been such a pleasure to see CoECI continue with, that is really foundational training. Needing to understand what makes a good challenge, how to frame that challenge, how to evaluate the solutions that come in is really foundational to I think what turned out to be an extreme success story here. Secondly, I mean, I always felt like I know the report that I authored and worked with the NASA team to develop in regards to that pilot. Really, what you need to do in that kind of program is understanding what success looks like, why you're being successful. We found a few things in that report. I think a lot of them had to do with the fact that NASA did really well in 3 types of open innovation crowdsourcing challenges. The type of challenges that are activated by just energy, right? Wow, there's this cool party that's happening. Let's get involved. To the other type of problems where you have more of a philanthropic kind of, you know, I'm putting my expertise into a worthy cause. NASA, obviously the brand just works so well there. And then the last one, which is really where open innovation drives a lot of solutions, is, look, we know it's technically feasible, but logistically finding that solution is difficult. And that's really what we found in by documenting that study. So those are some of my key things. Obviously stayed with it for a long time, but not there involved anymore. But it's been great to chat with you here a little bit. Those are some of my early recollections.
I'll say it again. I encourage everybody to go check these people out on LinkedIn. You can catch up with where they are today. We're sticking them in the past, and that's what we're doing here. All right. Thank you all so much. I so appreciate you coming on board. And I still have to say another thing for you guys really was your IP framework it was excellent. And I also have to give another shout out to the NASA at Work. That the fact that there was a focus on the internal crowd as well as the external crowd, I think was really, really a critical point early on for this. All right, so I'm going to shift now. Thank you guys. Maybe we'll have time at the end, maybe not. All right, I'm going to shift to Top Coder now. All right, so I didn't realize it was actually in doing the prep work for this session that I realized you guys were actually the first challenge out of the chute in the pilot. And Mike Lydon, you were the recipient of a phone call from Kareem Lakhani at some point where he was saying, hey, I want to use your platform. Can I use your platform? Do you want to talk a little bit about that early call from Kareem and what that led to?
Sure, Lynn. I'll just start off by thanking you for having me and all of us at Top Coder. I have fond memories of working with many of you, and probably one of the highlights of my career. So thank you. So yeah, Kareem, probably around early 2009, Kareem called into Top Coder, spoke with whoever answered the phone and explained that he's looking to do some experimentation utilizing Top Coder's algorithmic platform. And he wanted to know who the proper person to talk to about that was, and so that got directed over to me. My kind of my role at the time was overseeing the algorithmic and computational platforms at Top Coder, and so Kareem's call came in to me, and Kareem explained to me that he's been working with a researcher over at Harvard Medical School, Eva Guinan, and they were looking for a way to experiment on the efficacy of prize-based crowdsourcing in the field of computational biology or bioinformatics. And they had come up with a problem, a very real problem at Harvard Medical School around genome annotation. And it was a pretty neat, he explained the problem to me. It was pretty neat. And we talked about the necessity to kind of, deconstruct that problem and extract domain expertise from it to make it, accessible for all of the competitors. And I thought it was great. I thought it was a great idea. He had some prize money. I think it was $6,000 in prizes. And I just said to Kareem, I said, I'll just talk to the rest of the management and see if we can get this going. So I talked to the rest of Top Coder management. Everyone else thought it was great to, first of all, presenting our members with, neat problems and also forming a relationship with Harvard. And so the next phone call with Kareem, we really got into the nature of experimentation that Kareem was looking to do. And he started explaining to me about all the various treatments that he needs to be able to support in this competition to support his research. And we're talking about, competitors registering, but not knowing whether they're going to be participating in a group, whether they're going to be participating individually, whether they're going to be able to see other people's submissions during the competition or not, and a few other variables. And a couple of concerns came to my mind right away, red lights. Number one, this is going to be a lot of work. Our platform doesn't support treatments right now, and so we're going to have to figure out a way to cram those in there somehow to get Kareem's competition off the ground. And number two, and more importantly, was the integrity. So, this was my main concern. I brought up to Kareem. I said, we've always been all about integrity we need our memberships to our member base to know that, you know, we have their best interest in mind and we know how to do this. It's being done correctly. And now we're going to be asking them to register for a competition where they have no idea really what their rules are going to be, because they're going to, I think it was random assignment, or somehow Kareem had figured out a way to assign people to the various treatments. They couldn't pick their treatments. And so I told Kareem, I'm concerned about the level of participation. We have to tell them up front that this is going to be a crazy experiment and they're not going to know, you know, what their kind of rules are until the competition starts. And Kareem basically, just in typical Kareem style, I barely knew him at this point, just said, okay, well, let's go forward with it. I'm sure it'll be fine. And so we did. And it turns out Kareem was right. The participation was still, you know, very acceptable to support Kareem's research and to get some really good outcomes out of the competition. I think, you know, there was something like 16 of the submissions actually were more accurate than the current state of the art, and the top 3 submissions were not only more accurate, but they were 180 times more efficient as well. And so they got great data, and that's kind of how Kareem and Top Coder met each other.
Well, I think that the next thing then was he came to you and said, hey, NASA wants to do some stuff and we've got a NASA problem, right?
Yeah. So shortly after the end of that competition, he called us up and said, listen, Mike, I'm looking to do another experiment. And this one's, brace yourself, this one's going to be even crazier than the last one. And it was. But by that time, I knew Kareem and I was just like, okay, you know what you're doing. We'll get it done. This was he had been working with Jeff Davis at the Space Life Sciences Directorate, and they had come up with a problem that Kareem wanted to experiment on. This was on, we called it Space Medkit. It was essentially coming up with a way to algorithmically determine the most optimal contents of a medical kit that could be flown on a future human-based space exploration mission, thinking Mars there probably. And so we ran that competition, and again, the results were good. It supported Kareem's research, and Jeff seemed to be sufficiently satisfied with the results to continue the relationship. And so from there was a little bit of a bridge over to CoECI and NTL. We just formed a partnership between the 3 of us to run a series of algorithmic challenges for NASA specifically. I don't remember what that program was called, if there was a name for it, but a few challenges into it, we kind of, that's when NASA started talking, all right, how about other government agencies, and, you know, NTL and then eventually CoECI came along and kind of morphed that program into those, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Thanks so much for joining. Andy Lamora, are you on here? I'm not seeing my. Is your camera on? It's probably just the number of people.
It's on.
All right. I can't.
Might be buried.
Yeah. Andy. So I always thought of Andy as the person who could take a problem that we would throw at him and so perfectly take that problem and mold it to the Top Coder model. He could put the pieces together. He could see the puzzle before we even knew what the picture looked like and how to put the pieces together to get there. Andy, do you want to talk a little bit, because it's been brought up several times, about when the Longeron challenge was brought forward?
Sure. Yeah, that one was a doozy. The timing was, I don't know, 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. But you guys gave us a high definition CAD model of the space station, an electrical model, and then said, okay, figure this out and do better than Boeing, NASA, Booz Allen, and everyone we know. So, okay, we'll give it a go. And the Longeron, by the way, just demystify it, that's the mast that holds out the solar blanket on the space station. So the idea was to maximize energy on the blanket and reduce the shadowing on the station. We thought, all right, you know, no problem. And then we started looking at it as an engineering problem, you know, that we could support a challenge around with ray tracing and the rest. And sooner rather than later, we were facing what could have been a bill of like $1 million just for the infrastructure to host the challenge. So for us, it was a whammy. You know, what are we going to do with this? Because that's not what we quoted you.
Harvard. You quoted Harvard.
Wasn't the first time. So we, or the last, but we figured out that we were going about it the wrong way. We were looking, the light bulb for us was we were looking at it as an engineering problem instead of a crowd problem. So we turned the problem over to the crowd and said, what would be the right way to solve this? Because we can't build a ray tracing testing architecture that would work quickly for a challenge. And it worked like a dream. We got a terrific solution from a retired national lab worker that took the complexity right out of the problem, focused the high definition stuff only on what had to be high definition, got a beautiful rendering out of it, a beautiful at-home tester, and allowed us to support the challenge. And in the end, we had over 4,000 people take a crack at this thing. It was one of our best, in terms of participation, and they solved it. The real challenge here was to minimize every minute of that orbit, what kind of exposure the station would get and shadowing. And in the end, it turned out that we about tied what NASA has today. We weren't able to do significantly better, but the contestants did use different joints than NASA uses today to get the same configurations. And so maybe someday, if those joints start to wear out, that's a solution that can be pulled forward. So it was a ball.
Jason mentioned this morning that it's fortunate actually that they haven't had to resort to those, that it's good that nothing has happened at that point. So Rashid Seal, I am going to put you on the spot now. Rashid from the Top Coder team, I always considered the project manager. He had his plan. He was going to make that plan work, and you stuck with it, or you were, no, it's not true. But Rash, we had some really good positive projects, but for you, I wanted you to highlight the project that we did with the Office of Personnel Management, the service deposit SCURD. It was the SCURD system. Yeah, and I was just, we're going to come to the ISS fit here in a minute, but why don't you talk just a little bit about what we saw with OPM and what that project was like?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Lynn, for that great introduction. Very happy to be here. Our project with OPM involved reverse engineering a legacy application known as SCRD. So that's service credit, redeposit, and deposit.
That's what's
confusing. It's very confusing. Yeah. So the majority of the business logic was actually coded into stored procedures, and these are essentially SQL statements. So we had to reverse engineer all of the business logic, and the reason we had to do that was because a single engineer that was responsible for the entire system had retired. There was no technical documentation. Nothing was written down around how these calculations should occur in the rates at which a federal employee can receive a deduction or a redeposit, which is essentially a refund. So I think we had, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had run around 100 challenges on the Top Coder platform, and each challenge was responsible for a grouping of these stored procedures. And we had developers just going through and parsing and pulling out business logic, which we then had to reconstruct into a document and then use as our source of truth as we went off and developed a new rules engine to calculate these rates. So it was a monster of a project. It took a long time. In working with civil servants was an honor and opportunity. I think this group was a bit difficult to work with. There was an entrenched culture. So we had to just put on the charm, work with them, help them kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think in the end we were successful, but unfortunately the application that we had built has not been deployed yet.
Yeah, this was one of the situations where I saw, first of all, I was super excited about this project because it was the first time in my history as a civil servant and having been exposed to so many government legacy systems that I saw that it really could be, you could replace those legacy systems and you could do so reasonably quickly, and you could do so. It was still expensive, but it wasn't as expensive as if you went about it through a traditional procurement. The thing that I saw here is there was a young presidential appointee who had come in and had been given the mission of changing OPM and modernizing OPM. He had a very, we are going to do this and we are going to do this now kind of approach. Smart guy, super sharp guy, but he basically dictated to these people who had been in this agency for a long time, who were very happy with their jobs, that they were going to suddenly do things differently. That as hard of the work, as beautiful as the product that was delivered, that is never going to work in a government environment. And unfortunately, Rashid had to live that experience, but it was such a valuable lesson learned. And if Carl Becker's on, I know he learned a lot from that one as well. I just want to highlight the fact, and you can put that slide back up, because it cracks me up. We put the incentive slide up of when Jeff was there and the number of people in the incentive community. If you look at this, your community was 278,000 strong. What is it now, guys? It's huge.
Over a million.
Over a million, right? Yeah, and then this is Peggy Whitson on the space station using the ISS food intake tracker. It's still being used on the space station today. So Rashid didn't just have the horrible project, he also had a project and can take credit for that thing flying on the space station today. All right.
Sorry.
What, Rash? I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I'm gonna move over to Yet 2 now and highlight Yet 2, who I have to highlight. I'm not seeing Tim now. Tim has.
I'm here. I don't know if I'm off the main page or whatever, but.
You're coming back on. I think you just have to speak. And I have to point out to everybody that our work with Yet 2 is probably the only thing in our toolkit that did not have some connection to Kareem Lakhani. We actually were introduced to Yet 2 through a connection that was made by Cynthia Rando. And it was part of when she was still doing human factor stuff, and you came across her radar. And so this whole idea of technology search, I mean, Kareem was actually using the term broadcast search as kind of the academic term for crowdsourcing at the time. We put these proposals out on the street, and Tim and company respond, and it's like, hell yeah, we can use this too. So Tim, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what your model was and how it was a little different and where you were kind of in the Yet 2 business scheme at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. And Lynn, echoing John's thoughts from earlier, very honored to be here, and really an amazing job you've been doing building this whole day, which has been really wild to watch and take some notes on where we came from, and thus you can start to project where we're headed next as an industry. It's just been a phenomenal day, so thank you. Yet 2, we followed NASA maybe starting in like 2006. We started to hear rumors that there was a group there that was thinking that there was a broader world and more solving power out there beyond NASA's walls. We didn't play government. We didn't speak government. We didn't procurement, contracting officers, FARs, like, oh my goodness. Let's stay far away from that, because there are companies who are very good at that, who do that every day, and we're not one of those. So we watched and we heard about infusion and all these terms, which were mirroring our journey at that time. We were going from a sell side pusher of technology to a buy side seeker of technology on behalf primarily of large companies out in industry. And we were watching NASA kind of on a very similar time frame, but just as an academic thing. And then one of the guys in our office, Mark Solk, calls me up in April of 2009 and says, hey, I think I got a prank call from this Cynthia Rando woman. And I was like, Mark, you know we don't speak government. And he was like, yeah, but she's insistent. And so that turned into a pilot. the pilot projects still to this day were some of the funnest projects we've done for you. One of them I call Life on Mars. I don't know what NASA calls it. But how do you determine, as you land on Mars, or as we land on Mars, how do you determine when you're starting to see organic matter there? Was that matter there before, or did we bring it with us? Are we contaminating the environment as we go? How's that for a problem nobody's thought about trying to solve before? And yet so we call our network a curated crowd, where we go out proactively, and we're generally looking at companies that are already established, IP's already been filed. NASA's not going to be able to buy an idea. You're going to have to cut some kind of a deal with them on their technology that they've already evolved to solve that problem. In this case, we found a guy who'd been thinking about this for 30 years, and he said, well, there's this fundamental nature of all Earth-based organic matter, and we can posit that something that's native to Mars is going to look different in this fundamental matter. And that was one of the funnest searches we've done for you. We've done a bunch since then. I don't know, we're up to 50 or 60, I think. And yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Well, I was going to turn it over to Megan to talk that a little bit, but something that we talked about the other day, that working for NASA brought you something that you didn't really have at that point, which was you could talk about the fact that you were working with us, right?
Yeah, so when we were on the sell side, we could talk about all of our clients because the technology they had developed was just part of the nature of the game. When we shifted to the buy side and we're searching for these very sensitive topics, highly strategic, everything went anonymous. So all the names of our clients went dark all of a sudden in about 2005. And the fact that NASA is a public agency, we could use your name, you actually wanted the world to know the things you were looking for, that brought us some real credibility at that moment in our history, which was really great. The other thing I was just, as we went through the evolution, we were learning right along with you all, and who knew that just finding a list of a couple hundred interesting technologies was not actually enough to solve your problem. We needed to start to filter those, and then we needed to arm you all with reasoning for why this technology was the best one out of the 200, and that prioritizing capability. And it was fun to watch that evolution as we grew with you all.
And speaking of evolution, Megan, if you guys will show the chart of the Get To, I've lost the slide number now. I think I have it here, but yes, this. After the pilot, which was a huge success, we found it a little hard for uptake. I think we were struggling across the board, but particularly Yet To always felt like one of the most underused tools in the toolkit. But you can see the growth since 2017, and particularly in 2020 and 2021, not just us, but the other agencies are starting to use this capability as well. And if you would go to the next slide, what I like about this is it shows the broad range of what we have done. Megan, anything you want to talk specifically to about this chart for you personally, since you've been involved with this?
Yeah, no, I just have loved working on all the NASA projects. Our team in particular loves just the variety and the unique challenges that we get brought from NASA. We used to joke that, kind of back in the, 2016, 2017 era, our team would fight over who gets to work on the NASA projects. And now we're all like on multiple NASA projects. So we love that. We love getting to work with y'all, and have just really appreciated all the unique challenges that we get to do, and how much more we've gotten to work with y'all lately.
Thank you, Tim and Megan. And I have an apology because I messed up. I moved ahead too quickly. I wanted to introduce back to Top Coder real quickly, Jen Odess, who came on board as more and more Top Coder projects started happening. I haven't seen her in years. I'm hoping she's on, if I can see her. And then
I'm here, Lynn. I'm here. You just aren't seeing the right view, but I'm here.
I see you now. You just have to talk. Hi, Jen. And then Mike Morris, who grew into being the CEO for Top Coder. Mike, if you're on, say hi to everyone, because we did a lot of work. Yes.
Hi, Lynn. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
Great. Oh, it's so great to see everybody. This is so amazing. Kudos for getting this together.
Yeah, I wanted, John and Steve, I wanted to ask you a little bit about this too, because as Tim mentioned this, you guys could, of course, there were many customers who were, they wanted their name spread, but you guys also had several customers who wanted to remain anonymous. And not only that, they wanted the problem to be obfuscated, right?
Yeah, that was kind of one of the hallmarks of where we began back with some very sensitive areas and very sensitive departments back in 2007, 2008. So before beginning with you, there were programs that obfuscated the problem or issue and the identity of who the client was on the government side. And we do that commercially as well too. So it became normal and natural, but even those organizations in the federal government eventually went and started doing public challenges. So work with the intel community and the Defense Department, naming the particular organizations in the future. They had a mix of both anonymous and covert. Let's just call it covert challenges.
Yeah. So we had this period of time with Top Coder, Innocentive, Yet Two. The Top Coder work was coming out of headquarters. The Innocentive Yet Two work was at the Johnson Space Center. And I talked about this in the procurement section where it was like, okay, what are we going to do now that these contract vehicles are expiring? And that's when the decision was made to consolidate all of the contractual work at the Johnson Space Center. And many of you were on earlier heard the story of how the NASA Open Innovation Services contract came to be and the joy that effort was. So I wanted to highlight some of the milestones from our consolidated contract. And I am going to start here today. Kyla and Cal, are you on?
We are on. Hey, Lynn.
Hey, talk to me so I can see you. I'm sure there's a way I can
move around. Nice to see everyone. Thanks for having us on here.
I forgot James. I will come back to you, James. Let's do, I forgot James. I messed up the order. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go with Kyla and Cal. I'll come back to you, James, because we need to talk Tongle. Tongle can count as noise too. So Kyla and Cal, you guys win the task order for this highly technical challenge associated with increasing the amount of time that astronauts can stay in their suits if there is a problem. Do you want to talk about the space poop challenge and kind of the experience you all had with this? Because this truly was a milestone on noise for sure.
Absolutely. This one was such a milestone on HeroX as well. So this challenge came to us as the launch and entry suit waste management challenge. And I remember the meeting so vividly when we were like, we're going to propose to NASA to call it space poop. And everyone on our team was laughing, the NASA team was laughing, and we all left that meeting thinking, that would be a great name, but there's probably no way we're getting away with space poop. And then lo and behold, we launched this as NASA's Space Poop Challenge. And there is so much to be said for a really great name. And we have taken that lesson with us to all of our other challenges. I don't think we've received a no from NASA on a out-of-the-box name request. Since this, we've launched the Exploring Hell Challenge on Venus, Rustbusters, Guardians of the Reservoir, really taking this lesson of what's in it for a challenge name. And this name certainly generated that kind of buzz. It was really interesting. We were going along doing our social media advertising and targeted outreach, and then all of a sudden the media got wind of this challenge. And you can see there it had 239 media pickups. It was featured in top tier outlets like Times, NPR, The Washington Post, but my personal favorite was when it made a skit on The Daily Show. And if you haven't seen this, I think Ryan's linked the link in the chat, and I would go watch it after. It's hilarious. Trevor Noah does like a 5-minute skit of different people providing solutions to the Space Poop Challenge. But the impact of all of this media was really massive for both HeroX and for NASA crowdsourcing challenges. We ended up with 20,000 competitors signed up. We had a challenge video filmed with an astronaut that was watched over 100,000 times. There were 400 conversations in the challenge forum, 6,000 shares on social media. It really took off. And it took off in a global way as well. We had submissions from every country on the planet. Of course, some of them were not eligible, but people from every country participated in this. And that led to 5,000 entries, which is a whole lot of submissions to try and manage. And we had some learnings that came out of running a crowdsourcing challenge that was just that big. And I'm going to pass it to my colleague Cal to talk a little bit about some of those lessons learned.
Yeah.
Hey, Cal, before you go there, let me share that the only reason this launched as the Space Poop Challenge, I don't know how many of you were on with the lawyers earlier, but we took heart that these are our contractors' challenges. And Steve Rader tried to inform the PAO person at headquarters, hey, is it okay if this goes forward as Space Poop? And it turns out Sarah Becky was on vacation, so didn't see it. And so it was launched and the rest is history. So Cal?
Hey, I'm here. I think eventually I'll show up on your screen.
You will.
It just takes a minute. So I would say, for HeroX, like the impact, other than what Kyle has already spoken to a little bit, just the learnings that we took away from having so many submissions. I would say the other great thing that we really walked away from was, even though this challenge clearly had an age limit, just the sheer excitement behind the subject matter, in this case, feces, so go figure, there were a number of young innovators that responded. So as a result of this particular challenge that we ran, we now present our clients with the option of hosting a junior challenge concurrent to the main challenge. The prizes are mostly just cred and maybe some swag, but it's really just a fantastic opportunity to showcase young innovators and really supporting their growth. We actually used the junior challenge for the very first time when we hosted NASA's Lunar Loo Challenge. Not sure what it is about human waste and space, but HeroX seems to have that topic cornered. But overall, I think the junior challenge for Lunar Loo was just really, really amazing. And it's just the whole idea of giving these such bright minds an opportunity up front. And there's really no cost to the sponsor because it's just cred.
Yeah, and it was an excellent way for you guys to manage the attention.
The number of submissions, correct. And the last thing that I do really want to say is, like, we really absolutely love our collaboration with NASA, all of the sponsors, but also all of the phenomenal partnerships that we forged with the other vendors. And just really proud of out of the 34 projects that we were awarded, 11 of them have been awarded in partnership with other vendors. And that's something that we're hugely proud of and just really love leveraging that partnership.
Thanks for pointing that out, Cal. Really good. All right, I'm going to slow down a minute because I think we actually have enough time, because I was so concerned. Do not let time ruin your brain, Lynn. I'm going to take just a step back and introduce James DiGilio. James, are you still with me? You didn't leave, did you? Because
I'm here, Lynn. I am here.
Hey. James actually, and our introduction to Tongle, of course, came through Kareem. I was not surprised when James pointed that out the other day. Our first work with Tongle was through Harvard, and Jason was off doing this, the software algorithm stuff, but this platform came to his attention, and it was like, what, another opportunity and another end product that we could get by using crowdsourcing. James, do you want to talk a little bit about Tongle? And then I'm going to ask my team, they probably followed the script and posted it earlier, but to post the links to the 2 videos. This slide too. Thank you for the stills, James. James, do you want to talk about Tongle and kind of those early competitions we did?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely am the wild card here, and like the least academic and least technical person of the 85 people on this thing right now. But as you said, Lynn, the one common thread is this interesting Kareem Lakhani character, who I have to say, in a very funny way, the day that we launched Tongle into the world, I was in like maybe the worst hotel ever in Manhattan, and I got an email that day from this shadowy figure with a harvard.edu email address asking about what was going on in this platform in this community. I was like, well, dude, this thing just started. I mean, I don't even know what's going to happen. And then we just began talking about what was happening within our community from a multimedia standpoint, and storytelling and video. And I think he sort of knew that at some point we had to figure out how to work together. And yeah, the first time it actually came together was this cool still. It was around 2013, I want to say 2012, 2013. And it was to use our community and our platform to create viral videos and content to help market the Zero Robotics Challenge. And a really cool, we just having the ability to work with NASA, it just galvanized our community, and we had a tremendous number of submissions, and it's ever since just everything we've done together. And literally I looked it up, and there are thousands of film and video that's been created for the organization, which is just, and from people all over the world. That video we saw the still of, that was actually the concept for it came from someone in Romania, and it was made by a young up-and-coming effects person out in California who actually wound up working at Pixar, developing his own VFX house, and has worked on films like The Avengers and just huge studio films using those tools that were developed and it's just awesome to hear that stuff. And not only are we, fulfilling a really very important purpose, we're giving people opportunity to really shine and develop their skills in their businesses. So that was the first kind of kick at the tires. And
I have to share with y'all, I encourage you to go, those videos are very short, but I was taken aback in looking at them, how relevant they still are, how extremely relevant. It was like amazing to me that those things still held the way they held so beautifully. James, I'm sorry I skipped over you. Do you want to mention anything about CineSpace? You have 2 other companies on here who have also supported CineSpace. I guess I can highlight that's the weirdness and wonderfulness for us that this task order award process, Innocentive, HeroX, and then Tongle have all supported CineSpace. But why don't you talk about that a little bit, James?
For sure. So this has been a fantastic ongoing partnership we've had. Every year we are working with the Houston Cinema Arts Society, for those of you who don't know it, where we're taking archive footage and giving that archive footage to filmmakers all over the world who are taking that footage and creating short films using that as source footage to incorporate into all sorts of storytelling. And it's, as I said earlier, it's created thousands of unique films over the years. Every year it goes to screen in Houston, and Richard Linkletter, the director of Dazed and Confused and a lot of other great films, is the judge. And it's just this wonderful cycle of opportunity and storytelling, and we're thrilled to have been a part of it and hope it continues.
James, I'm really glad you came on board, and don't take it personally that I skipped over. It was my brain on the block. So thank you very much. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to Lynn Van Deventer now for us to talk the Earth and Space Air Prize, which was NASA's first use of competes. And I asked Lynn if it would be okay if I showed this slide, because I think it captures kind of the challenge that Lynn had in trying to, we were forging a new way of operating. So we were dealing with legal things. She didn't have to get involved, thank goodness, in any of the financial things that were going on behind the scenes. But then she has to navigate administering a competition that involves the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and NASA. Lynn, do you want to talk about that experience and kind of how that went?
I would. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much, first of all, for having us. And, I'm really excited to be here and representing Kirit. And I think someone earlier on this segment said that they fought over the NASA contracts when they came in the door at their company. Well, I lead a whole team of program officers. We work on all kinds of competitions for around the world for many different kinds of organizations. And when the NASA ones come in the door, I kind of cherry pick those. So I get to do all of those because they are so much fun for us. And it's just been, really great to do this work. And then NASA Earth and Space Air Prize focused on identifying solutions that spark the development of easy to maintain, small and affordable aerosol sensor technology. And it was really focused on the potential to be useful in space flight as well as on Earth. So the space flight part, I think that makes sense, right? That's NASA. What we had been told was that, nobody actually really knows, even though the space station had been around it for 20 years at that time, the International Space Station, no one actually knew kind of what was in the air. And so as you can imagine, that was a really important question and problem to be solved. So that's what these sensors were really meant to do. That was what the challenge was, trying to sample what was actually in the air. And the way that the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, so they are really focused on, and I'm so sorry that I'm forgetting their tagline at the moment, but they're really focused on the health of our communities, right? And having I'm sorry, Lynn?
Culture of health.
Culture of health, thank you. Yes, for all of our communities. And so they were really interested in this technology and its applicability in smart cities. So maybe putting it up on a telephone pole to, sample air quality in neighborhoods. So that was kind of the background. And this particular particulate monitoring had been identified as a gap in NASA's technology roadmap to enable future long-term missions. And so this competition was also aimed to close that gap. And as Lynn mentioned, this was really groundbreaking because this was the first use of America Competes with external funding provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. I know, Lynn, definitely, certainly there were challenges. And I think, many of those, especially the challenges of getting the contracting arrangement between Robert Wood Johnson and NASA sorted out. I fortunately didn't have to deal with any of that, but I couldn't have asked for a better team. I really felt like this group, despite being from two separate organizations and, wanting different aligned but different outcomes from the challenge, they really worked well together. And I felt like part of that was like, the obvious things, right? Project Management 101, clear sponsorship, shared goals, a great project plan. And so it really felt like that this program really served as a great blueprint for how to organize a competition with co-challenge sponsors.
Go ahead and go to Luminary Labs to give them the due that they should receive here, because they've supported NGA with our biggest, most complex challenge to date. So when NGA came to us, wanted to work with us and wanted to launch this competition, Luminary Labs became the company to support them with this. And so Jana and Sarah, can I ask you to talk about that and to talk about that with some
quickly, sure, Lynn. First of all, we are just so honored to be a part of this amazing group of contractors you've assembled and to be supporting NASA. We love working on these complex multi-stage challenges for you and really love this work. And we were thrilled when we were selected to develop this program for NGA. MagQuest was a $2.1 million competition to advance how we measure the Earth's magnetic field. And in the 2 years we worked with NGA on this, there's 3 things that really stood out as being pretty special to us when we look back on it. The first is really the magnitude of the problem. So NGA is part of the Department of Defense, and so their mission was to source innovative solutions to power the world magnetic model. And this model is used for military and commercial uses around the world and supports navigation and attitude determination for submarines, satellites, aircraft, but it's also embedded in thousands of systems. So like more than 1 billion smartphone users depend on this world magnetic model. And it was really just sort of amazing to us to work on a problem that had the magnitude of what we were working on with MagQuest. The other thing that really stood out to us about this program was just the ambition of using open innovation to solve such an important problem. Just sort of like the sheer audacity of this team at NGA to use this for something of this magnitude, but also on a really tight time frame. You know, working with the government, we still feel like we're novices there. And then you work for the Department of Defense, you have a whole nother layer of process that you have to go with. And we hit every deadline. A lot of that was because of the incredible team at NGA. They just made sure things happened. They really partnered with their contract teams, their legal teams to make it all happen. And they were also really clear-eyed about what using the open innovation mechanism could offer. I know there's some talk about this earlier today, but they really understood how open innovation fit into the broader system of what they were doing. And I think one thing that was really smart is they had other processes around this competition that provided other pathways to goal. So they could really use open innovation in its purest way and really complement the procurement process and not replace it necessarily. So that was amazing.
Yeah, important factor here. Go ahead, Jenna.
And then I was just gonna say the last thing is that like this is gonna result in like a real solution, real outcome, and that billions of people will be relying on this at the end of the day. And I don't know, we felt so lucky to be working on this, loved the team, Mike Benicia, Angel Garcia, Mike Winkle, and Chris Vasco, just so lucky to work with them and to have NASA as our shepherd, or Sherpa, I think you guys said earlier today, and Christine Jenkins was just really incredible. And we're really lucky to work on this. And there's a great article in Wired if anybody wants to check it out. So I don't know how often NGA makes Wired magazine, but it's a really great article and very inspirational to look back on and read.
And Jana, I'm not going to show the slide here, but I do want to point out, can you share the award that you all received related with that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this was pretty amazing. In recognition of MagQuest's success, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence awarded NGA the 2019 Intelligence Community Acquisition Award for Team Innovation, and Luminary Labs received that. In fact, Claire Carlson, who's on our team and may be listening in right now, was the person named because she was really the person behind the scenes that made it all happen for us.
We're at the point where we have matured. We're part of the Space Technology Mission Directorate now. It thrills me to see your faces on here. So please, Amy, take it away.
All right, excellent. Well, Lynn, thank you so much. I'm Amy Kaminsky. I'm the Program Executive for Prizes, Challenges, and Crowdsourcing in the Space Technology Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters. Lynn, this is such an honor to be part of this, and I know this day has been completely amazing, and I just have to say it has been a personal and professional privilege to work with you and the whole CoECI team for the last many years. So as folks have seen here, CoECI got this really incredible start at JSC and in the HEO Mission Directorate, and has now been part of the STMD team for the last 3 years. And so the focus of this session is to talk about the continued growth and progress of CoECI and NTL with STMD. And so to tell that story, we have a number of wonderful folks from STMD. These individuals include Jim Reuter, who is our Associate Administrator for STMD, as well as 3 other members of our team. We have Nikki Werkheiser, who is our Director of Technology Maturation, Jason Derleth, our Program Executive for the NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts Program, or NIAC. I know he's temporarily on detail to OMB, so we appreciate him stepping back into his role here for a bit. And Chris Baker, our Program Executive for Flight Opportunities and Small Spacecraft Technology. So to get us started, I'm going to ask Jim a few questions, and then we'll turn over to Chris, Jason, and Nikki to talk about some specific experiences they've had working with CoECI and prizes and challenges in general. So Jim, a lot of the individuals here on the call are familiar with STMD, but I know a number of them also are not so familiar with our particular mission directorate. So I was hoping that you could give folks a sense of what STMD is all about and what its interest is in prizes, challenges, and crowdsourcing.
Yeah, sure, sure, Amy. And I really appreciate being here. And I want to congratulate Lynn and the team for just the outstanding work that you've done over the last 10 years. It's one of the more exciting areas that we have. And I love to see the progress. And it was also a pleasure to me to hear a little bit of the discussion before you switched over. So you being a little late gave me that opportunity. So I appreciate that, Lynn. Um, so it's great to see the contagious excitement of the people, and as you recall, that just a wonderful 10 years, and not everybody thinks to go ahead and do an event like this. So to go ahead and kind of reflect is a perfect thing, and especially for your great career coming to a close at NASA, at least soon, Lynn. So, but in terms of what we call space tech or the Space Technology Mission Directorate, we're one of the 6 what you might call main business lines at NASA. They're the mission directorates. That's where most of the money goes through. So we're one of the smaller mission directorates in terms of dollars, but we have a very strong breadth of the type of activities we do. Our charter says that we are to develop transformative technologies that enable new missions and discoveries, supporting human exploration and science endeavors, as well as commercial space. With that, we have a range of technology developments from early stage, to what's called the low technology readiness level, that concepts and that you're just first developing the concepts and activities that are going around there, to getting into the mid stage or mid TRL, where you're kind of proving in the lab, and then ultimately to flight. And the people that come after me will talk about that much more. But what we like to say is technology drives exploration. We have over 1,400 active technology projects that we're working. We have maybe on the order of 500 university partnerships, and about 150 of our technology projects plan to go to flight demonstrations. We have a very strong desire to develop partnerships in the tech activities we have with both industry and academia, and we think that's the most essential way, or the best way, in order to help infuse the technologies that we develop into useful products, both here on Earth and in space. So for several years, we did have the responsibility for Centennial Challenges, which are multi-million-dollar challenges focused on advancing technologies to meet our longer-term needs. And we have a lot of great programs there. Then what we did, as Amy said, I think it's in the last 3 years that CoECI has become part of our office, which was a great move for us, so we could consolidate the majority of activities of prizes and challenges and crowdsourcing activities for the agency into our office, and really becomes a very big prominent feature of what we do, as well as really a key program, one of our key 10 programs that we're doing.
All right, great, Jim. So another question for you. In your estimation, how do public prize competitions help support STMDs as well as the agency's goals?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. What I would say is, in order to be as creative as we can be and innovative as we can be, a key to that is to seek out diverse opinions and perspectives. And that diversity comes in a lot of different ways. But what we find with prizes and challenges is we reach a part of the audience out there that we wouldn't reach by other conventional methods. There's something about prizes and challenges and crowdsourcing events that really drive out that diversity in our partnerships. And then what we find is we garner different perspectives and approaches to our biggest challenges. One example is the honey, I shrunk the payloads. I'm sure that it'll maybe get talked by Nikki as we're going forward. But we have some concepts for different rovers or hoppers on the moon surface with very small payloads activities. So we sent out this challenge for, that we called Honey, I Shrunk the Payload. That was so successful, we ended up adding a sequel because it's really generated ideas that we might not have thought of on our own. And so Prizes and Challenges is one of those 10 tools, 10 programs that we have. And just for reference, over this last fiscal year of 2021, we ran like 65 crowdsourcing projects and competitions and prizes that totaled over $9 million. And continually, what we see is crowdsourcing is a phenomenal tool that we just, for us to gain insights and input in a much more rapid time and more diverse than we would normally see as in another way. And we've seen that, like our NASA at Work Challenge, we've leveraged it multiple times. When COVID-19 pandemic just became, changed our lives, we send out a NASA at Work Challenge for ideas that are from our employees of how we could help mitigate the effects of the pandemic. We received over 240 ideas in just 2 weeks, and one of those is now ended up, and several of them ended up being products that we did. One of which ended up being, I think, now the most licensed technology NASA has ever had, the Vital ventilator that JPL developed. And so we have, and there's many more examples of this, and that we kind of reach out for, and anytime we want to leverage crowd-based innovation, it's just a phenomenal tool.
Excellent. We do have quite the toolkit. So can you tell us a little bit about what STMD has done to sustain and grow Prizes and Challenges over the past several years? Yeah,
the first thing I would say is, well, heck, we use the tool and we advertise that tool as we go through it. And it becomes a very, for us, it becomes a great, actually it's one of the more interesting things that you'll see. The agency's leadership has a high interest and engagement in this area. They love to hear about the prizes and challenges we have, and just a little, and as we're going forward. We have regular discussions among the players for us. By consolidating into an office, it's helping us promote that activity. And then the CoECI NTL model, what we did is now we've done something we call, I think it's called crowdsourcing contenders, where we actually competitively select and fund NASA employees to run competitions. They never used to have that opportunity. They'd have to come with the money another way. And this incentive actually has greatly increased our reach into our community. And so, it's a sister right now. It's an entire program between CoECI and Centennial Challenges, and so then it's a sister events with projects within our program office of combined program office that really kind of solve multi-phase, multi-million-dollar challenges, as well as smaller, more focused activities that we can get in and out of results fairly quickly. And so bringing it over to a single program, consolidating it into a mission directorate, advertising that in multiple forums has really helped, I think, and has really helped draw out a lot more activities that we're trying to pursue.
Great. And one last question for you, Jim, is as we look to the future, how do you see our use of prizes and challenges at NASA evolving?
Yeah, I think it's only going to grow. Crowdsourcing is just a phenomenal tool. I think what was it? We have a different challenge that's in process now with grade 6 through 12, and in there we got a phenomenal number of multiple hundreds of applicants. And so then we said, well, we got to have we reach out to a community to get reviewers for those. And so just within 2 days of NASA at Work coming out there asking for folks, we got what was it, 400 or so people? It's very short. It was hundreds of people volunteered in just a couple days, and so just phenomenal. We couldn't do that another way, and so I can only see that crowdsourcing should be almost mandatory for any new project or program project that we're going to start. that the first things they ought to do is see what's out there, do the data search of what's out there already, do a crowdsourcing to generate ideas that feed into our programs. It almost should become a standard tool for as we develop new projects and stuff. It is that fantastic, I think, of an event and a tool that can help us. And then the challenges, I think, across the board, I think it'll only grow. The Centennial challenges that we now have multiple multi-million-dollar challenges, and having that paired with the hundreds and thousands of things that we can do and the ideas that we can generate in just a very short time. I just think that's an extremely strong program, and look forward to more and more progress, even after Lynn unfortunately leaves.
Thank you so much, Jim. And
thank you, Jim, and thank you for giving me the kitchen pass on you're getting to hear some of the talk.
That was enjoyable. So thank you.
Good. All right. Good to see you, and thank you, Jim, so much.
So I know, Jim, you're going to have to head out very soon, and we're about 5 minutes past when we promised to let you go. Do you need to get going, or can I open it up to see if there are 1 or 2 questions for you?
I'm okay until about 10 after or so.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got about 2 minutes, I'd say, for questions, and then we'll move on to our 3 colleagues. Any questions for Jim?
Amy, just so you know, it's been a very non-questioning crowd today.
Yes, I think everybody is in ingest mode today because there's such rich information, and I think that just listening to the conversations, I think, has been fabulous. Oh, there is a question that came up in the chat. What is the biggest surprise you have had in Open Innovation Challenges?
Oh, good question. Oh, yeah, I am. I'm not muted. Let's see. The biggest surprise in an Open Innovation Challenge. I think the response to COVID pandemic and how creative of solutions we got so quickly. And then, like I said, the #1 licensed technology at NASA. I didn't expect that in such a short time. And honestly, I get surprised often, because whenever we do this, it's not really a surprise anymore. Maybe the first time was a surprise at how well it works, but I would say that's.
Yeah, that the at work platform is just amazing in terms of galvanizing the NASA community. So it was an amazing test case for our ability to do that. All right, great. Well, let's see. I think that's it for questions. So Jim, thank you so much for your support here, and of course your support for prizes, challenges, and crowdsourcing over the last many years. And yes, we will absolutely continue to honor Lynn's legacy and build it out and continue to do great things. So Lynn, you're going to have to keep watching this space. At this point, we'll go ahead and turn things over to Nikki, Jason, and Chris. You have been some of STMD's leaders in using crowd innovation to make a difference in meeting NASA's technology objectives. So what I'd like is for each of you to comment for a few minutes about how open innovation has supported the work of your programs. So why don't we start with you, Nikki? And then we'll go Jason and Chris.
Absolutely. And remind me one more time how long I have, because I could talk for a long time. So I'm going to hold myself accountable here. Yeah.
All right. How about 4 minutes?
4. Oh goodness. Okay, I'll streamline it because there's so much good stuff. I'm very Lynn will tell you I'm very passionate about this area. So just real quickly, so I'm in the technology maturation program, director for that. And with the mid-TRL challenges that we have in general, I mean, let's just face it, they're unique challenges, right? Just inherently, these efforts have higher risk. We have significant technical hurdles, and that's why you hear it often referred to affectionately as the Valley of Death, which I think makes it extra fun because we're really kind of bridging between the early stage and the R&D side, and then trying to get up to that prototype or that infusion all the way into the high TRL. And then you also consider the fact that most of our NASA workforce, that we don't really have technology development degrees, right? It's a way of thinking. It's a learned skill, really based on experience. So for me, it is really critical then that we don't let all of these challenges that we have with tech dev and the culture that we build, that we don't let that propel us to get too immersed in a groupthink or too married to a singular development path. And that can happen in any large organization, right? It's just human nature. And so even, when we're doing things, we try not to be too prescriptive in requirements, but focus more on capabilities. What I have found is that holding these challenges, we're really able to reach audiences, like Jim said, outside of the traditional space industries. And you'd asked him what he was most surprised by. I was as forward-leaning as I am in the very beginning, back in the old days of when I first started crowdsourcing with you guys. I was a little skeptical. I thought, maybe our issues, maybe the things we're looking for were maybe a little too specific or niche, or, how would folks know, what? And I have just been over and over and over again a true convert on how many things are going on out there, what ideas people come up with, that really just do directly help us to find creative solutions. So I want to talk real quickly about a few. Jim had mentioned the Honey, I Shrunk the Payloads. I'll talk a few others. We use the yet to searches. I want to talk about that for a minute, where Jim said you could almost, use these for everything we do. Yet to is one I feel like that about. I feel like every time that we've had to write a solicitation for a really novel technology, like our in-space manufacturing fab lab, for example, or for our dust mitigation technologies, also for different materials for the lunar environment to survive the extreme environment that we face there. We do these yet to searches where, we meet with the company and really kind of lay out what NASA's looking for. And it has amazed me how they can go out, and they can get behind firewalls, and even on a kind of an international scale, right? And every single time they bring back parties or companies or folks out there that are working in areas that may be terrestrially based but have direct application to what we're doing. And here's the key part that we didn't know about. And so, sometimes with our teams, in the first, there'll be a little resistance. Hey, look, I've been doing this for 30 years. I know everything that's going on out in this area. And I'll say, okay, well, the worst case then is that this validates that, right? We'll go see if this will validate that. And every single time they have been just as surprised. So we have really been amazed by that. The other thing I'll mention is GrabCAD. Some of our GrabCAD challenges back in, I think it was 2015, maybe even 2014. I think we did the first NASA GrabCAD challenge ever through CoECI for in-space manufacturing, to have the community to design a 3D printed handrail clamp that they needed on station. That was the first one ever, and we got nearly 500 entries in 3 weeks. And our designers were just blown away. I mean, we had just incredible, clever and very expert inputs to this, and several of those designs were actually incorporated into what we were doing. Another one that was more recent was our Regolith Advanced Surface Systems Operations Robot, or RASER. And it's an excavation rover, right? And it has a little a bucket drum. And so we were looking at different designs, different ways we could approach that bucket drum's volume, how to really get the most efficiencies there, while maintaining our size and weight requirements. And that's another one where we just received like incredible responses. We had more than 350 entries from countries all over the world. It was about 55% US, I think, and about 45% international. And I think about 128 of those entries were considered competitive, and then 56 went forward for a lot more detailed study. And then NASA selected 10 finalists, and we're actually carrying these things into our design. So I think that whole challenge was around 10K. All of these have just been amazingly affordable, I'll just say. And then briefly, I'll touch on what Jim had mentioned with the HeroX challenge, the crowdsourcing challenge with our Honey, I Shrunk the Payloads. This one is still ongoing. It's just a lot of fun. We have these little small kind of nano rovers, right, that'll cover the moon, and they can act cooperatively together. It'd be a demonstration, an early lunar demonstration. And we wanted to have little payloads. We worked with the Science Mission Directorate about the size of a bar of soap and look at what different types of instrumentation or science we could do. And we're just amazed. We had 132 submissions in phase 1 from 29 countries. And then it was so overwhelming and really just excellent. Then we ended up going on to the sequel, as Jim mentioned. And there are evaluation of 4, let's see, I think 4 right now. They're building prototypes. And so all of those, they have a potential for those to be down selected and actually be a payload on our Cadre demo that just came out yesterday in the news, by the way. It's on the CLIPS CP11 mission, and that just will be flying in a couple years. And then several NASA work challenges. I know I'm out of time, and lots of other stuff, but those are some of the highlights. One last thing I will mention, we've done a couple of fun team building things with the freelancer graphic challenges too. We had our in-space manufacturing, our team graphic, and then for our refabricator, we had a crowdsourcing challenge to actually design the patch that went along with our recycler in space, the first recycler in space demonstration. So it was a lot of fun to see very creative ideas on artistic ideas that the public came up with for those.
Nikki, thanks so much. You're absolutely right. I know we could spend a whole hour or hours hearing about all of the different amazing ways that you and your team have used crowdsourcing over the years. So thank you so much for being a pioneer in this. Much appreciated. I'm going to move on now to Jason, who more recently had a foray into crowdsourcing, and we'd love to hear about that, Jason.
Great, thanks. So I get to run a small program at an STMD called NIAC, the NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts Program, where we look at really early stage things, where the concepts are sometimes euphemistically called TRL 0, like people don't even know whether or not they could possibly be physically possible. And how do you then take that and apply it to a space mission that could be in the future for NASA someday? And one of those was run out of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California by Dr. Jonathan Sauter. And his idea was Venus is an incredibly difficult place to go explore. The longest lived probe was one of the Russian Venera probes. It lasted, I think, 137 minutes. And that was an amazing accomplishment when it did that, because Venus at the surface is kind of like when you take your oven and you use a chemical caustic oven cleaner and then turn it on self-clean as well. And that doesn't even actually come close, because that's about 550 degrees and Fahrenheit, and Venus actually 550 degrees Celsius. And it has really bad acids and things in the atmosphere. And so Jonathan came up with this idea of, well, I mean, wristwatches work in extreme environments. All they are is a wound up spring and some gears that are really elegantly put together. Couldn't we do that and have a clockwork rover? And this was, NIAC is full of garage inventors and makers and folks like that. And so we're kind of a natural fit with the Prizes and Challenges community. Now, we've tried over the years to have maker meetups and things and work with different aspects of the community of makers, but we hadn't really done much with the Prizes and Challenges. Jonathan decided to use his maker connections to try and run his own competition. And it didn't really work very well. He wasn't able to offer a prize. He wasn't able to get the word out as effectively. And he got only 3 entrants on such an exciting project, right? I mean, he's trying to make a Venus rover that could last for a year. And he couldn't get anybody to respond. And so we got together, Amy and I, and helped Jonathan work with HeroX. And through that program, it was a little bit different. We were able to provide a prize purse of about $30,000, and that incentivized a large number of entrants. In the end, at the end, it was 572 entries from 80 different countries, over 1,000 posts on the forum to 200 different threads discussing the challenge, dozens of well thought out submissions. So that out of those 572, there were probably 50 or more that were serious contenders for prizes. In the end, they, of course, had to choose a number of winners, and they chose 5 different winning teams. Originally, the idea was to try and avoid pitfalls and rocks. So how do you do that mechanically with no electronics? And Jonathan thought, well, you know, those little cars that you used to have when you were a kid, maybe if you did, where they can go forward, or when they back up, they turn. And so he just put a bumper grill on the front. When it ran into a rock, it would back up and turn, and then it would go forward again. All easily done mechanically. He was able to do that and avoid rocks. What came through the prizes and challenges group was incredible. There were literally dozens and dozens of things that nobody on the team had ever thought of. And they, you know, like I said, there were 5 winners, 12 honorable mentions. All of those ideas worked, and they were completely different than what Jonathan Sauter had come up with himself. And Dr. Sauter is not exactly a dummy, right? So this was just really eye-opening for, I think, a huge group of people that are involved in the NIAC community and everything, to see the power of prizes and challenges. And it was just spectacular. Now, I've made the offer to all of our new NIAC fellows that we can try and partner again. And we've actually gotten one person who was able to do a NASA at Work challenge. It's a little bit challenging, especially in our program, where the dollar amounts given to our research fellows are so small that it's hard to come up with that $30,000 or anything at all, really. But when it works, and it's really exciting. So that's it. Thanks.
Jason, thank you so much for sharing that story. It is an amazing story. Now, Chris, I'm going to turn to you and tell us how crowdsourcing is changing some of your business approaches and flight opportunities.
Sounds good, Amy. Thank you. So, as was mentioned before Jim spoke, I'm Chris Baker. I'm the program executive for the Small Spacecraft Technology and Flight Opportunities programs. With those 2 programs, we're trying to increase the pace of space exploration, discovery, and the expansion of space commerce through rapid identification, development, and testing of capabilities that exploit agile spacecraft platforms and responsive launch capabilities. And so kind of the way we got into a Prize and Challenge Authority was a bit circuitous. A few years back, I was sitting in the audience of a small spacecraft conference with a panel of venture capitalists on the stage. And they were telling an audience largely full of entrepreneurs and small businesses that if any of those companies or aspiring companies were working with the US government, they weren't going to get any capital from the venture capitalists because the US government was too slow. They had a bit of a point. At the time, solicitations were taking us 13 months, over a year from when we started a solicitation to when we were making awards. And in the small spacecraft community, that's an eternity. Entire generations of technologies rise and fall within a year or 2. Simultaneously, the Flight Opportunities program, within there, where we're helping pair up industry flight providers of suborbital flight with technologies, again, for exploration, discovery, and commerce. There was a 50-50 cost sharing requirement for commercial grants that we kept trying to get waived, but that was still stuck in there. And so the combined result was that between small spacecraft and flight opportunities, we were missing the startup and entrepreneurial space element that is so key to both that small spacecraft and suborbital flight community. So to try to help us solve some of these challenges, we actually reached out to a group over at GSA called 18F to help us kind of be an independent evaluator of our acquisitions process and see if there were ways we could speed that up and be able to get folks who came in the door with a good idea out the door with money to go implement it, rather than sitting around waiting for over a year to find out if they won or not. And then through that process, 18F ended up suggesting Prize and Challenge Authority, and we kind of circled back to our colleagues down the hall, in some cases literally, in other cases figuratively, and ended up putting out two pretty amazing challenges here. One, the Tech Leap Prize competition. We just had our first Autonomous Observation Challenge 1. That was our first foray there. It was released in June, and 3 initial winners were selected 14 weeks later. So we went from 13 months to 14 weeks. So they got an initial 200K prize, and through the end of it, they're eligible for up to 500K total. And we hope to fly each of the winners on a suborbital flight at the end. And so we're looking to do that development process in 8 months, which often takes 18 or more. So again, it's really helping us move significantly faster and reach again that entrepreneurial and small business community that that there were barriers to us reaching through more traditional mechanisms. As a bonus, we also have the wonderful challenge Jim mentioned kind of at the end of his talk with the Tech Rise Student Challenge, where we are going to select 57 winners from across the country, 6th through 12th grade teams who are going to get to launch their experiment on either a high altitude balloon or a suborbital rocket. For that, we just received hundreds of applications and proposals from across the country, and couldn't be more excited about that opportunity. And it's been really great. And Amy and Lynn, apologize that it took us to go to GSA to come back to you guys, but I'm glad we made it.
We are too, Chris. We are too.
Yep, it's been a great ride, and we're just going to keep watching amazing things unfold with this. So I'm looking at the clock, and we've got 2 minutes left, and I want to open it up to see if anybody in the crowd here has any questions for Team STMD.
And Amy, you can legitimately go over.
I always try to keep us on time, Lynn. So, okay, well, I will ask one question of our panel here, which is that, crowdsourcing has definitely over the last many years that it's been part of NASA has become more familiar, but a lot of people around the agency still don't either know about it or are skeptical about it. So as 3 individuals who have who just testified about its capabilities, what would you say to your colleagues around NASA about the power or capability of these of crowdsourcing and prize competitions and how they can be beneficial?
I would say that I just heard Jim Ryder say that we should make it mandatory that they have to do it. Did everybody hear that? Was this recorded?
Yeah, I heard that too. I wrote that down actually.
No, seriously.
That wasn't the exact word I used.
We'll go back to the tape, but it was inferred.
Jim, I already have that quoted in materials for the future. I'm holding it.
Add it to the Jim said list. Yeah.
I think he also said that the budget would be increasing, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right. I think I highlighted NIAC for that too.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
The Hell Froze Over Challenge, is that what you called it? Yeah.
Exploring Hell.
Oh, that was it.
Yep,
yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of it to me is getting to our program and our project managers really out the centers and putting this in the mainstream toolbox, right? And in the budgets and in the mainstream budgets. These are very reasonably priced, but you got to let people know they're out there. And honestly, like I said on our project, I kind of required it when we were formulating new technologies. It was kind of due diligence to see what was out there, at least start with a yet to search and then look at how else we could use some of these other design challenges or just the various multitude that's available to us. So I think it does have to be seen kind of not as a one-off or just an interesting thing to do, but as a real tool for project management.
I think culturally, it's a real challenge for NASA engineers, especially to think about going out to other people to help solve problems that are so unique and so challenging. And yet, time after time after time, it helps. It really does help. And so getting people to go beyond that not invented here syndrome and to go out and ask, I think is hard, but it's worth it. It really is.
And I think, you know, to Jason's point, perhaps what you just have to say is I think, as you said earlier, Nikki, what's the worst that could happen? Go try it, right? And what's the worst that can happen? Someone could come up with a brilliant idea.
Here, here. So we got one question from John Fredrickson on the chat. If you each could ask for one thing to happen to make the use of open innovation and crowdsourcing more normal in everyday use by choice, what would that be?
It's by choice. I think it goes back to a lot of what we just said, maybe. But I think the other thing is what, you know, Steve and Lynn and the team have been doing, which I think the road shows were very, very helpful. I know for sure because I was at centers when people's minds shifted and they saw, like, you know, when they hear the kind of general conversations and they're like, kumbaya, yeah, that's cool, but how's that going to help me? And there's some skepticism when we have highly technical problems. But then when they heard some of the examples that were included in the CoECI Roadshow, and saw how some of the amazing turnout, that you know, I saw a lot of change there. So I think continuing to do that, and then we have a lot of new and young folks coming into NASA too, that this is not a foreign idea, right? And so that should be introduced as a tool from day one.
So I studied lean engineering for a while, and one of the things that they talk about there is how do you change an organization? And the way that you go about doing that is you have to get initial islands of success, and then you have to communicate that. As far as I can tell, that's exactly what you all have done and are doing. And so I hate to say keep doing more of the same, but keep doing more of the same. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, I think I'd echo that. I think the examples, the real world examples, and providing that to folks who may be skeptical, I think that helps. I think that helps make the case and shows them the power here, and maybe breaks through that initial skepticism. And I think another thing here is to you know, to remind them that there's a lot of smart people out there, and there's a lot of problems. While their problem may be unique and their problem maybe is hard, there's a lot of other problems out there that might be similar, and in a way that they're not even thinking about, and that by reaching that broad community, you really do open it up to unexpected opportunities. You know, to bring it back to kind of my little knothole, you know, if you had told someone, you know, a couple decades ago that people would be flying spacecraft using these things as the processors, they would have said, no, you can't do that. And yet that has been done. And so the advances in consumer electronics have really changed the way we do space exploration. And there are many more things like that out there that we're just waiting to find. So thank you all for helping us find them.
Yeah, and I'll say one last thing on this, and that is, you know, making it free doesn't hurt. Inexpensive doesn't hurt. Amy was able to bring some money to the table for the NIAC challenge, and that really made it work for us. We brought some, and she brought more, and so thank you for that. And that's another way that you can, you know, get wider application. And of course, again, keep doing what you're doing. You're already doing that.
Well, we're all doing this together for sure. And so Nikki, Jason, Chris, Jim, STMD team, CoECI team, Centennial team that are there, thank you so much. It's such an honor and a privilege to be working beside all of you and just carrying this great work into the future. Looking forward to even more. So with that, Lynn, we split the difference and we're only a little bit late.
Hey, and kudos to Lynn Bucco. Stay approved.
I think there's a question from Jen.
I just want to make it real quick for Amy, because Amy facilitated this wonderful discussion with all of these amazing people from Space Tech. But Amy is also a really, really important part of the story for CoECI and for NTL and where we've gotten in the last 10 years, and has been a remarkable leader as we've integrated the Centennial Challenge team and the CoECI and the NTL teams and thought about really how we take prizes and challenges to the next level, not just for NASA, but also within STMD. As you can see within this discussion today, just how much STMD has picked up the use of prizes and challenges of all types as well over the last few years. So I just really wanted to make a shout out to Amy and her leadership and her great work leading this work within STMD.
Thanks, Jen. I'm part of a great lineage with you and Lynn as well. So thank you.
Stellar team, absolutely. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Now everybody knows who Jim is. I know everybody was like, who is Jim? What? All right. Thank you all. I'm going to switch gears considerably here for this next session. The next session is really focused on introducing the people who have been a part of this. You had the opportunity, I hope, if you're just joining, you can go watch the recording, but meeting Jason and Jeff and Jen and Amy, and the fact that we had 2 associate administrators, one a former associate administrator now at SpaceX, joined today was really testament to me of how much this methodology and how much the work we have done is really now not boring as Kareem wanted it to be, but really accepted, fully accepted. And that is a major, major milestone to be at for this work. So I wanted to introduce the people because without these people, this would not have happened. John, Michelle, are you on?
I'm here.
All right, excellent. Okay. I have got to, what do I need to change my view to here? Large gallery. I got it. Now I can see. All right. So for us folks, it's a little hard to understand kind of, so we originally were kind of split. Jeff started at the Johnson Space Center in what was then the Space Life Sciences Directorate. He and Jason got together. Jason provided resources as well. So we were an office, kind of virtual office split between JSC and headquarters. As things evolved, we became an organization within the space and life sciences area at JSC, what is now the Human Health and Performance Directorate. So we are aligned to the Headquarters Prizes and Challenges program, but our home base is at JSC in the Human Health and Performance Directorate. And I wanted to go ahead and introduce kind of the leadership that has supported us in that kind of weird position that we're in. And I'm going to start with showing, will you guys show the slide of Kathy Kerner? Because after Jeff Davis retired, Kathy Kerner stepped in the role of being director. She has moved on now to become the Orion program manager, a pretty significant role. The thing I wanted to highlight about Kathy is that she became a really fierce fan of the work we were doing. She supported us. She made it a pretty strong goal to ensure, you heard how STMD has started using this for its own purposes. She wanted to see Human Health and Performance, HH&P, using it more for themselves as well, and made it a real push for us to build that into part of our strategy. She also took our metrics. We have to provide Kathy a report quarterly of the number of challenges, the number of NASA work things, because she folded those into her own performance measurement that went forward to her superiors. So I have to give a big shout out to Kathy Kerner and the support that she provided us. When Kathy left to become the Orion program manager, John, who I like to refer to as Jean-Luc Picard Sims, stepped into the role of director. Jeff, will you come on camera? Are you on camera?
Working on it. It just took a while. I'm having Teams challenges today.
So I introduced John to you. John has been a marvelous supporter, continuing the legacy of being the manager of a unicorn in their organization. John is a savant when it comes to Star Trek information. I have to say, one of the best leadership presentations I ever saw was John's presenting on leadership lessons from Star Trek. John, you want to just say something about what it's like having this weird unicorn in your organization?
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. First, thanks for inviting me to come chat a little bit today. And congratulations on 10 years of what I consider outstanding success. I mean, it is just, it's almost shocking how much this organization has done over the past decade. I'll have to confess, and for those of you that don't know me, you know, I didn't grow up in HH&P or Space Life Sciences. I came over from FOD as Kathy's deputy. Once Kathy took over for Jeff Davis, she started hunting around for a deputy. And she and I had an initial meeting and about, you know, would I come over and do a rotation as her deputy, which later became permanent. And so I said, great, I'll come over. And I did my homework. So I looked at the org chart. And the first question I asked her, because, you know, I actually knew what I thought was quite a bit about HH&P, but the question I asked her was, what is this Center of Excellence for Collaborative Innovation? What the heck is that? And she said, have you ever heard of NASA at Work? And I said, sure, I've heard of NASA at Work. They send me emails about cool things. And she said, that's it. So that was my introduction to the unicorn. It's interesting that you know, Lynn, you refer to CoECI as a unicorn. Unicorns are cool because unicorns are special, and that makes it interesting to have that in our organization. HH&P, you know, we're already kind of special because we do medical stuff, we do engineering, and we do science stuff. But having CoECI here with us, that just adds to the variety and I won't say the entertainment value, but the engagement value of leading this organization. So I've had nothing but great affection for CoECI and the folks that work in it. You know, having you guys hosted, and that's how I refer to CoECI when I'm talking to like Vanessa and other folks here at JSC, as we host. Having you guys here, having you guys hosted in our organization has been a real privilege, and we couldn't be more proud to have you guys here with an SA mail code. So, you know, again, congratulations, and thanks for having me here for a few minutes today.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. And if there's anybody on from the other agencies, John is actually one of the key signatures in the interagency agreement cycle. So you can thank him for that. Michelle, I'd like to introduce you next. Michelle, and I have a little cute name for everybody. Michelle, I always follow the rules, Freeling. I understand you have a reputation as a rule follower. So
I am a rule follower. That is true. I'm sure you got that from Keith, but my husband would attest to that as well.
Michelle is the newest deputy director in the Human Health and Performance Directorate. And I wanted to give Michelle just a thank you because she came to us. She was formerly the program manager at KBR. And she has been a real supporter of the work we have done. She has been an encourager of her own folks in that organization at the time to really support innovation. You push for a lot of innovative efforts at KBR. And so truly thankful for that, Michelle. And it's a privilege to introduce you today.
Well, thanks, Lynn. And just want to tell you congratulations on 10 great years as well. And it has certainly been my pleasure, both as a contractor and now on this side, to be a part of this, and really appreciate it as a contractor being involved from the very beginning and then having you use our team to help implement everything. A lot of times as a contractor, you get told to go implement this way. So it was really fun for us to be able to be creative and innovative in lots of different ways. So it was really a joy.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Lynn.
All right, next I'm going to introduce you all to a man who really doesn't need introducing among this crowd, but Steve Darth Rader. Yay!
Hi, everybody.
Why I can't see you.
Can't see. I can see me.
Can everybody see him?
No, can't see you, Steve.
That's
He needs no introduction.
Can't see Steve.
That's where he gets the Darth from. And actually,
Today too.
he actually has a suitcase that has Darth Vader on it. First time I saw that, it was amazing. For most of you, Steve needs no introduction. And all I need to share with you all is Steve took the helm in June. And it has just been a privilege to watch him assume the leadership role for this organization. It's been nothing but a pleasure to watch him do that. Steve, you can stay on, get your camera on. We have your picture here. Next, I'm hoping he's still on. I'm introducing to you the people who are actually part of the team as it operates today. And the next person, there you are.
Had to use my phone.
Oh, good to see you. Would you can go ahead and stay on as I introduce everybody, if that's okay. The next person I wanted to introduce is Kevin Meme Master Kempton. Kevin, are you still on? Yay! So Kevin had a limited window that he could be with us today because Kevin is part of the CoECI team by virtue of STMD's game-changing development program. Is that who's getting a call? Okay, all right. He actually is not employed as part of the Human Health and Performance Directorate. He is an employee at the Langley Research Center. Kevin came to us, it's been 3 years now, hasn't it, Kevin? And
yeah, time flies.
And has never left. And I give a big shout out to Game Changing Development for their insight in seeing that having an employee who is part of their team be a part of our team, I think has been nothing for a bonus to all of us. Kevin really is the meme master. The entertainment he provides during our team meetings on Teams sometimes brings tears to our eyes. And he's also a master woodcrafter. It's pretty amazing the work that this man can do. His technical prowess, his network, his technical network across the agency is really a big boon to the organization. And Kevin, thank you. Glad you could make this. All right, next person I want to introduce to you is Christine Lady Jenkins. Christine, please tell me you can come on camera.
Can you see me? Now can you see me?
Yes, I can see you. Yes, yes, yes. Christine works with us from her home outside Denver. Today, I'm actually thrilled. She's actually in Galveston. The remote team members came in for this event. We're all remote right now, but we are going to gather for dinner later. Christine came to us and she literally had a baptism by fire. She got thrown into some of the most complex, I don't know, had issues type of challenges when she first came on board. The biggest one being a challenge that went public and then was canceled by the associate administrator for ARMD at the time. So that was literally, this woman has had a baptism by fire. Christine has become our expert at supporting other federal agencies. And again, if any of you are on, you know, I believe you got a shout out from the federal sector session today, Christine, for the work that you've done with the other federal agencies. This woman has a bead on customer support like Vanessa, help me. The tennis player, Serena Williams. I was confused Venus and Serena. A beat on customer support like Serena Williams on a tennis ball.
You're mixing up Venus and Serena.
I was mixing Venus. So Christine, thank you for your support. And I'm glad you're so much a part of this team. Next, I'm going to introduce Sarah Sass with Class Douglas. Sarah has been the part of what I call the story support team today. Sarah was our first full-time communication strategist. We had no real deliberate communication strategist on our team until Sarah came on board. She came on board first just to focus on our NASA at Work communications, but has blossomed into being an essential part of all our communications products, and right now, a definite part of the prizes, challenges, and crowdsourcing communication strategy. Beware, because she's supporting the team working on rebranding. Let's see where we go after this. Sarah, thank you. And thank you for your help today so much. I'm glad you did all that, had all that work working on those, managing those questions. That was really a tough one today. Next, I'm going to introduce Ryan, the ultimate shrimp lover steward. Y'all need to Google Red Lobster ultimate shrimp lover when you have a chance. Ryan came to us from real-time space operations. He was actually supporting space station. You were an AGCO. Remind me what that stands for.
Attitude, Determination, and Control Officer.
Yeah.
The pilot of the station. Sorry, I lost my voice.
You were a pilot of the space station from ground control, right? Yeah. I have appreciated since Ryan came on board, because of that flight operations experience, he has a nose and an eye for process and operational excellence that's uncanny. He's passionate about the work and its possibilities, and he has taken on an incredible workload with the shifting personnel changes that we had, and he's taken it on with grace and aplomb. And he recently assumed full leadership of our NASA at Work operations. Ryan, you have your background blurred. Are you not going to show your fabulous art? People will be jealous.
It was from a past meeting and I didn't have time. I'm doing too many things here, screen capping.
There you have it. Next, I'm going to introduce Colleen. I'm only doing this because I want to come work for you, King. And if I don't know how many of you know that, or earlier if you were on, Colleen was actually she was the first contract specialist that we had on this contract. Everything that she has done since that time, she said, was always to try and stay involved with anything to do with CoECI, because she was bound and determined that one day she was going to work for us. And she would do things, such a really menial task, but she would do it because she knew that it might get her a better chance of coming on board with us full time. So thrilled to have Colleen as a part of the team. She came on after Carolyn Wolverton retired, and we thought there was no way that Carolyn could ever be replaced. She can't be for so many things, but Colleen has stepped into the role of interagency agreements manager and serving as the core on noise 2. In fact, all of our contracts except the small ones that Ryan is now. So Colleen, thank you. Karen, where in the world has she not traveled to Mello?
Oh, that's a good one, Lynn. I like.
So Karen started with us part-time, and it was, we didn't know whether or not we would actually have the resources available to bring Karen on full time. But as the amount of other agency work we were doing continued to significantly increase, Christine, as superwoman as she is, could not handle it all. So we were able to bring Karen on full time. And Karen is also now serving primarily as support, a challenge coordinator for the other federal agencies, but she's also had the pleasure of supporting some of our teams at Langley and doing some of the NASA work. Karen was a bit of a I don't want to call it perfectionist, but she really needed to understand our operations at the lowest level of detail before she could get really comfortable stepping up to doing more and more challenges and having a bigger workload. She's there now and is really stepping into supporting us in a way that's truly valued and appreciated.
Thanks, Lynn.
All right, Erin, please just tell me what my job actually is, Ortiz. So Erin came on board because the interagency agreement activity was consuming a considerable amount of Colleen's time. And Colleen had other things that she could bring value to. And so Erin came on board to assist with that and to help with that. But since she's come on board, given kind of the shifting personnel things and the shifting priorities we've had, it's been like, Erin, we're going to ask you to step up to do this week. And Erin, how about you take on responsibility for being the challenge coordinator for the Centennial Challenges? Erin, how about we ask you to do this? And so she said to Colleen recently, I just want to know what So Erin's new to the team, still very much learning, but we're very excited to have her on board. And then the last person and the newest person we have is Allie the Magnificent Llewellyn. Allie, you've been on board all of what now?
A month, I think.
Has it been 2 months, Steve? It's been 2 months, a month. It's not long, folks. It's absolutely not long. And I got tickled the other day because I reached out to her on Teams asking just a very quick question. And she said, I'm so happy I was able to answer that. Allie has been working in kind of innovation areas around the center and the agency. She was part of the initial kickoff of the Space Apps hackathon, if any of you are familiar with that. So she's had a long history of kind of supporting various efforts around the center. She comes to us really experienced in the innovation area, and she has expressed real joy in being a part of the team. I know we're happy to have her. I know Steve is happy to have her. She's supporting Ryan with NASA at Work operations, and she's serving as backup, trying as fast as she possibly can to learn this crazy world of how we operate. Allie, I really think you found your new home. So everyone, that's the current team. Those are the folks who are supporting the day-to-day operations. I'm gonna take, I have to take some time. You heard it in the procurement session, that our team cannot function without having procurement an integral part of our operational reality. Marta Choma Porter, are you on? Marta, we had a couple names for you. Colleen liked to refer to you as Marta the Clause Chopper Porter, because Marta will take a government contract, and if there's anything in that contract that is unnecessary, she is not lazy. And those of you who we have contracts with should appreciate that. She's going to chop out those clauses that are not needed, that don't have to be there, all in line with what the FAR calls for. My name for Marta is Marta, the Dream Contracting Officer Porter, because she has been a dream for us, and it has just been fabulous to have her, and procurement has let her stay with us for quite a long time now. Someday we know that won't be the case, but for now, Marta, you are such an important part of this team. Now I'm going to introduce David, the new guy, Velarde. David is the new guy. Our procurement team, when they talked about, they've opened up a little bit, actually realizing the level of work they had and the lack of really trained government procurement specialists. They put in place a contract that allowed us to hire procurement expertise. That is such a change, y'all. You have no idea. I almost made his name David. He really is a contractor. So David has joined our team as the latest contracting specialist, and he and Marta are learning to get their rhythm, and I look forward to him being one of those long-term contracting specialists with us. David, welcome.
Thank you. And I hope when I make the list next time on the length of employees that my number is pretty high, not in the lower end.
We hope so too. David, I forgot to point out that Karen DeMello supports us from her home in Mountain View, California, and David is actually in Arizona. Did you say Tucson? Where are you?
Tucson.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let me get my act together here. Oh my goodness. This next one, Lisa Oden. Lisa is our budget analyst. Lisa, are you there? Will you come on camera? No. Well, if she's not going to come on camera, at least I'll show you that if any of you saw the contracting officer, contracting specialist number of days, Lisa has been a part of this team. I don't know if it's been updated since Jeff Doy provided these to me, but she's been with us for what seems like forever. She has been instrumental, absolutely instrumental. We had a crazy, wild process of task orders. You heard Aubrey talk about other agency funding. Organizations bring their own funding, aligning all of that. Lisa has streamlined that process. She knows where every penny is. We called her Lisa Moneybags Oden because she really holds the money and is the money bags of this organization. I'm sorry she didn't come on. It would have been fun to say hello to her. Okay. All right. With that, I am hoping these folks are on. I'm going to go fairly quickly now because these people have left us and broken our hearts, but we appreciate their support. So let me introduce Jeff, contemporary Renaissance man Doy, and Carissa Sparkles Collini. Are you guys there?
I think Jeff had to drop for another meeting.
Oh, boo.
Carissa told me she has to present at her new job at the same time, so she probably couldn't make it. She picked her new job over us.
That's so perfect.
I'll hop off.
So the two of them were part of the heart and soul of this organization. They have helped grow it. Carissa was so critical to where NASA at Work is today. But the two of them have opportunities to go forward and spread their wings and grow professionally. And we are so happy for the both of them. And I know the both of them will do well in their new positions. I know it for sure. I don't know if Jennifer joined it, but I wanted to give a shout out to Jennifer 1787 Sharp. She was the CES who preceded David, and there was a period of time. So 1787s, for every task order, we have to say whether we want to go large business or small business. And we had to do a form with the Small Business Administration for every task order we award. There was a period of time where all Jennifer was doing was 1787 after 1787 after 1787. She's moved on and is doing a detail in another organization right now. She was so instrumental when Marta was out on maternity leave. Allison Wolf, are you here? See, they just don't care. So I had a fun name for Allison. You all will like this. Allison, data and strategy are my jam. Wolf. Allison was instrumental in picking up some of the work that Carl had done with our data management and integration and Salesforce implementation. She set a foundation that Steve and Jeff Doy were able to take and spin a little on their heads, but if it had not been for the work that Allison had done early on, it would have taken them a little longer to make that puppy spin the way they've made it spin.
And Lynn, she is on. She just couldn't get her camera.
I'm here,
She's-
but my mute button wasn't working. I'm here. Thank you, Lynn. It is my jam.
That's pretty good, right? I was proud of myself for that one. Next, I want to introduce Robert Mac Guy Lewis. He helped turn our story into beautiful graphics, help with our websites, get our website set up, and for me personally, shout out for all the help with the products that supported today's event and some of my retirement products too. So Robert, thank you. Thank you so much. Forever the Mac Guy, right?
Thank you.
Sarah, would you show slide 28? Which is a slide of Anita Weaver and Catherine Keaton. I have to share with you, Catherine Keaton was part of the early team. She was instrumental in the early foundation for NASA at Work. She supported Jeff with his implementation of something called the Solution Mechanism Guide, was so important in pulling that thing together. Her PhD in organizational behavior, I have to share with you, helped me so many times where we were in that storming phase and I thought I was gonna literally lose my mind. She was so helpful. Anita Weaver was the first CoECI deputy manager. She was with us for a year, came from Space Station. We were storming at the time, and she had the ability to take what were pretty loosey processes and literally document that so that it was our first opportunity to really begin looking at those and getting a little repeatable in how we operated. I'm very grateful to Anita for what she did. Her nickname, what did I have for Catherine? Catherine Superwoman Keaton. And Anita always eating something healthy. Anita was very thin, very petite. She was one of those people who ate all day. So thanks to those two. And now, finally, I have to introduce three people who I hope are on. Carol, Mike, Carl. Please come on camera.
Hi, everyone.
Carol, yes. So these three people were, for me, my port in the storm as we were kicking this thing off. They were so technically savvy, government process savvy. Carol has more connections than any human being should be allowed to have. They were all part-time. They were part-time. We got a little of their time, but for me, there was never any question that what time I got from them was good. It was absolutely good. And you guys, my little nicknames for you, Carol, Take No Prisoners, Gallica. Mike, So Much More Than Carl Jr. Ching. And finally, Carl, Nothing But Perfection Becker. So to everyone, these are the people who have made a difference. Where we are today, every one of these people have contributed, and I am so, so incredibly grateful for all your contributions. You guys have made a difference in how the NASA works and how the government works, and I cannot thank you enough. Over to Sarah Schleter Douglas, because I have to share with y'all, I gave Sarah a task because there was no way, we have over 600 people that we have supported now with their projects. We used to call them challenge owners. We're trying to call them project owners now. We gave Sarah a list and said, Sarah, these are some of the important people. Please go make a video so that we can at least capture some of the input that these challenge owners have for us. So Sarah, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Yeah, our team loves people with problems, especially the really difficult ones, not to be confused with problematic people. We don't like those, but we do like people with problems. And And so we've heard today about all of these amazing people that have helped make this community what it is, but we would not be anywhere without those people who courageously brought us their problems and asked us to help them find solutions. Otherwise, we would just be running challenges for the sake of challenges. So I sat down with a few of our past and present challenge owners and put together a little video about their experiences and to tell you guys their stories. Just to note that sometimes Teams is a little unforgiving when it comes to sharing video and audio. So if it is blotchy for you, just please be patient. The video is only 3 minutes long, so it won't be too terrible, but we will put it on our YouTube channel so that you can watch it later. So let me get it pulled up here.
I'm James Johnson. At the time of the challenge was from Johnson Space Center, and the challenge was the Mars Balance Mass Challenge.
Hi, I'm Tracy Prater. I'm in the Habitat Systems Development branch at NASA Marshall, and I've been a previous user of the CoECI platforms as part of a previous project I worked, the In-Space Manufacturing Project.
My name is Kirsten Johnson, and I work on the Space Poop Challenge. Bruce Staten, I'm the Technology Innovation Engineer on the Technology Infusion team in EGS at CoECI. Our challenge is the annual EGS Technology and Innovation Call.
I am Danielle McCulloch with the Flight Opportunities team. I am the program integrator, and I have had the good fortune of working with the NASA Tournament Lab on the NASA Tech Leap Prize and then the NASA Tech Rise Student Challenge.
My name is Mike Pichia. I'm the program manager for the World Magnetic Model at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency.
My name is Chris Vasco. I'm a contractor supporting Mike and NGA, the Office of Geomatics, specifically for the WMM program.
We work with CoECI on the MagQuest challenge.
There really wasn't much question once we started interacting that this was the right spot for us.
I think I've always been very impressed with the quality of the outcomes and just the diversity of ideas.
We did get answers that varied from off the wall and kind of wacky to very calculated concepts. We got those that were very scientific and very technical to those that were also extremely simplistic.
It is the perfect way to get an answer to a problem if you aren't sure what the answer is or what the best answer is.
I'm going to venture really the value is in terms of time and if you were to prescribe hours to time.
For us, it really did come down to the speed of being able to do things. We talk in the program that we're looking to change the pace of space, and this truly allowed us to do that.
To normally just to try to figure out how to approach a problem like this, and the government can, as a government program, can take many years because they have to, go through a certain, acquisition process. They have to gather the expertise. They have to find the right people. I mean, it's a long process. It requires, formal requirements generation and all sorts of other things that just take a long time.
We now have these concepts in our back pocket. If there is ever a technology development time when we can go off and develop these more to have a better concept for, missions much in the future, then we all already have that in our back pocket. And, with that already, that could save us 3-4 years.
I really think that there are only benefits, right? There's no downside to using any of the CoECI platforms, right? Like the worst case scenario is that you get some new ideas and you get greater engagement. So that's the worst case, right? And the best case is that someone comes in and actually is able to solve or point you toward a solution.
We have the pleasure of working with really passionate people that are submitting ideas that would directly benefit the work that they do every day. I know I would do it again if something like this came up.
Quite simply, what do you have to lose?
Thanks, Sarah. I thought that was nice and sweet and to the point. And thanks to all the challenge owners who participated. Chris and Mike from NGA, if you're on, thank you so much for being part of that. So now's the time, folks, for me to get off the stage. Sarah, can you put up the last little slide that I have? So the story's not over, y'all. We have gotten to this point. We are 10 years in. I think you have seen today how we have created something new in the government. We have created good government. That is not an oxymoron. And I believe that since I took that oath of office well over 30 years ago now. So time for me to get off the stage. My work here is done. And it gives me such pleasure to turn this over to Steve Rader. Thank you all so much. Thank you. I was flying by the seat of my pants a lot with this, the way I flew by the seat of my pants at the beginning of all of this. So I appreciate it. Forgive the mistakes, forgive the time crunch at times, but see y'all. Bye.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, well, this is the last session, so hopefully you guys can stick around. Let me see if I can get this shared up. One more button click. Okay, I think you guys can see that okay. So I wanted to talk through a couple of things just to give you guys an idea of not just where we're going, but kind of where we've gotten, because we talked about the full history here. And if it's okay, I actually want to start just by giving you a little bit of story about how I ended up in CoECI. I actually read a book in January of 2011 called Crowdsourcing by Jeff Howe, who was the editor at Wired and is credited with coming up with the name crowdsourcing. And when I read that book, I instantly knew everything has changed. Everything about how work is done is going to change, and it's going to change because of this. And it became an obsession with me. I immediately went out and joined a number of communities, CoECI and Amazon Mechanical Turk and all these, just to try to understand what is happening here. And I got quite passionate about it. And at that time, Jeff was just rolling out stuff. They had just finished the pilots, and I remember being at the PM Challenge, which is a big conference at NASA, and both Jeff and Jason were presenting on their pilot results, and I was just, oh my gosh, not only is crowdsourcing amazing, but NASA's doing it, and we need to do it. And I became kind of a fanboy, I have to say. And I started stalking everything that they were doing about what was going on. I'm not sure. Are you guys seeing my slides? Because I just saw something else.
Yes, we saw. Yes, you're good, Steve.
Okay. And so, I actually joined NASA at Work. I actually tried to get my organization to do NASA at Work challenges. The first time I actually met Jeff Davis was when I shook his hand at an award ceremony where I was getting a certificate for winning a NASA at Work challenge. Like, that's my first actual getting to meet him. And it was kind of funny because I had worked with Lynn back in Constellation programs, if anyone remembers that. And it was commonplace after Constellation was canceled that you would be walking through the cafeteria and you would run into somebody you'd worked with and go, oh, what are you doing now? And that happened with Lynn. And I said, hey, what are you doing now? And she said, well, have you ever heard of crowdsourcing? And it was just like this little switch went on, and I just poured out all sorts of stuff about, yes, I have, and I just love all this stuff. And that started a dialogue with us. And I think 9 months or a year later, when Anita decided to leave, there was an opening, and I, of course, went straight to that like a moth to a flame, and have been there ever since, and I've really enjoyed it. And Lynn, if you guys don't know, Lynn is retiring at the end of this year, but her going away is tomorrow. Like, it's literally, like, this is upon us. She really is leaving, and you of course have seen the great legacy that she's leaving behind. And so thank you, Lynn, not just for putting this together, but for everything. But this has been a great event. If you don't know, we've gone from yet to an Innocentive and Topcoder and Tongle in those first few years, to now we have access to 40 different crowdsourcing communities that represent over 120 million people worldwide. This top wedge is our Noise 2 contract, which may look a lot different than this in about 4 months or 6 months. Yet too, we've got that contract and have had that from the beginning. Our NASA at Work platform now has 32,000 people, 32,400, I think Ryan just texted me, that have signed up on that since it started. And in fact, there may be a challenge coming up very soon that the administrator himself will run. Things like that. It's just an exciting time. Future Engineers is doing more education challenges than we've ever done through our cooperative agreement or through our agreements with them. Our work with Harvard through their LISH, their Laboratory for Innovation Sciences at Harvard, and the MIT Innovation Lab, where you saw with Eric von Hippel, all of that has really contributed to our ability to sell this to our workforce, our ability to inform other agencies and other people around the world about this. And then our micro purchase challenge. In 2015, we were doing this big contracting effort, and we didn't have access to some people that we thought we could try to get because they didn't bid. And so we went to them and said, well, the only way we can work with you now is on a purchase card, on a government purchase card. And at the time, the limit was $3,000. And GrabCAD said, sure, we'll do it. And so that got us going down a path. And in 2015, I actually ran a pilot on Freelancer and GrabCAD and some others to see what could we get for $3,000 or less. And it turned out we could get amazing things. And that led to the work that Zoe talked about earlier about the Astro Bee challenge, where we got robotic arm designs. Now they've raised that limit to 10K. And so some amazing things. So we've really been exploring all of the different things that can be done with crowds. And in fact, one of the things about this Noise 2 contract is that we expanded it not just to be prizes and challenges, but to include prizes and challenges, open talent, which is leveraging the gig economy to find experts that help us come to solutions that we might need in a different capacity. And then things like micro tasking, things like Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is really important in the data sciences to be able to chop up and deal with the data. And then we actually left a clause and said, and any other kind of crowd methodology that you come up with, because we knew that this was going to be something that was going to continue to change and morph, and we could take advantage of that. I think you've heard this number today. We just surpassed 600 projects across all of our contracts, and you can kind of see how that breaks down. The totals are in this first column, and then you can kind of see the Noise 2 and Incentive and all those public platform challenges that we've done over the life. Done about 200 of those. Yet too, we've done about 72. The micro purchase, almost 100, and NASA at Work, over 200 challenges in just that platform. And you can see overall, we get really good success rates out of this. And you can kind of see how we break down that success rate. And we consider those, the solves, significantly advanced, incrementally advanced, all to be successful. Very little failure. And I'll say, when we do fail, we end up learning something there too. So that they end up not being of value at that point. But you can kind of see from these, we've actually saved more money than we have spent. So in other words, we've gotten almost $100 million worth of work for less than $50 million. And that includes all of the prizes. So it's really an exciting area. The things we've been able to accomplish to date, the kinds of work we've been able to do. Just to give you an idea of the growth, and I think you saw a little bit of this in a chart that Lynn showed earlier, but you know, in that first pilot, there were only a handful of challenges. I think 10 on Incentive, and I think maybe 5 or 6 on Yet 2. And by 2012, we were almost at 25 because we added in that NASA at Work, that big orange slice. And from there, you can kind of see the NASA at Work. We continued at about 20 some odd challenges a year on NASA at Work. And then we started actually getting more and more of the public challenges. And you can see in 2015, there's a big spike there where we actually added in the micro purchase pilot, where we were trying to experiment with that. And we did something like 32 challenges with, I think, about $20,000. It was amazing results we got out of that. And then you can kind of see the yet too was sticking with us there as well as we went on. And it's been in the last few years that we've really seen just a really huge growth in the uptick, not just in other agencies, but across NASA as well. And you can kind of see that in the budgets, right? It's all in the money. And that right there is one of the reasons that we're expanding some of the contracting work we're doing now that Lynn mentioned earlier. Talk about the breadth of work. We're still not sure of everything that we can do with crowds. We know that we started with ideation, we went on to system designs, went to software, we figured out we could do algorithms. And again, all of this with our vendor partners who are just doing these amazing things. But then through our work with the micro purchase, we found out we could do graphics and video, and even education courses got developed. Engineering models, the stuff that Nikki Workhauser was talking about, where we would get these amazing CAD designs. And now we're even getting into the development. The NGA folks are kind of doing this full life cycle piece, and we're doing that on multiple projects now, where we're getting more and more into that valley of death area of trying to actually help projects get all the way through. And you can see from these totals and from the breakdown that these vendors are these platforms are providing crowds that can do a whole lot in lots of different areas. They're not just a one-trick pony. And we've been just learning a lot throughout this process. Okay, I want to shift just a little bit to point you to where we're going with all this. We have a tremendous team, as you just met, and they are very dedicated. And I will just say, one of the things about that we have tried to make central is that we are Sherpas. We are here to help the people on our organizational sides in government or at projects learn how and use these tools and help them to actually use them, eventually with the idea that they will be second nature in using these tools. Just like Jason was talking about at the beginning, that we want this to become something that people use, and Kareem mentioned this as well. This is something we need people to fold into their regular toolkit, just like Excel, right? Or just like Outlook. This is another tool, and that's the real end game here, is to get people to use these tools. And this team is so customer service oriented. That's what they're focused on, how to reduce the friction so that we make this as smooth as possible for folks to use so that they'll want to come back and have a good experience. And because it's new, as soon as you hit a speed bump, a lot of people will back off, and we're here to counteract that. And so that's really what you're seeing with this team, and they're extremely good at executing that really streamlined process and making sure they stay focused on the actual customer. Some of the things that you'll see from us over the next few years, hopefully over the next year, you'll see some of this, is you'll see that we are working to integrate better into the rest of this STMD world, the full life cycle. You know, there's SBIRs and STTRs and NASA iTech and the Tech Transfer Program. All of these are dealing with technology development. We're really about technology discovery, right? But there are elements of what we do that can actually help to benefit the development side, and we're starting to explore those partnerships and those handoffs so that we really understand how to take a technology from here, where we discover it out there in the rest of the world, and all the way through until it gets launched on one of our rockets or is flying in one of our aircraft. So a really important thrust that we're going to be focusing on, and through the prizes and challenges and crowdsourcing group at headquarters, that we really want to extend and develop into. And as part of that, you can see this is our kind of set of crowdsourcing functions at NASA right now. You can see we have NASA at Work and NTL, but there's also Centennial Challenges and the world's largest hackathons, international space apps, and all the citizen science work we do and all the student challenges. And we really want to start being cohesive about how those are used, and that we leverage all of the tools that we have and all the procurement tools we have to make those all work even better. Part of that you may see is that we may try to rebrand a little. So You may see CoECI and NTL and NASA work all morph a little bit so that it all fits together and feels like one brand under NASA that folks can understand easily and start to really pick up on. And we want to do that in a way where we don't lose our following. So we're really having a really interesting discussion about that internally, about how to really make that something that is good. The interesting thing is, we just turned 10, so this is the time to pivot and to try to go to that next level. I just have to say something about NASA work. We have an incredible workforce, as you might imagine. It takes a lot to get onto the roles at NASA as both a contractor and a civil servant. And these are truly some of the most innovative people in the world. Not that they can't benefit from the open innovation, they very much do and can, but we very much like to use what we've learned about curated crowds with our own workforce, because what we find is they are hungry to innovate. As like most organizations, your opportunity to innovate in your job is small, no matter where you work. It's a limited opportunity time, and a lot of the time you're in meetings or doing kind of the work of the perspiration of getting something implemented. We want to actually curate in our workforce ways that they can actually keep sharp on the innovative methodologies, keep sharp on the way of thinking, that whole innovation culture we hear about. And this is helping us do that. And we do that through challenges, through what we call Idea Central, where we engage in kind of interesting technical discussion. And then we've started doing a lot of calls for proposals, if you will, on this platform, where people are bringing ideas and getting them funded. This tapestry, we want to build that out and that curation to become even more. We have webinars now that have anywhere from 200 to 700 people on them, just talking about whatever challenge we have out there. We want to continue that. We're seeing some of the platforms out there. We currently use IdeaScale. Prior to that, we used Incentive. But we're starting to see new capabilities like AI matching and suggester systems and some wisdom of the crowd activities where people can actually interact with the platform and actually be able to help people on projects predict cost and schedule. And so there's some really interesting capabilities that are coming, and we want to stay on the cutting edge of that. I will tell you that our group that does that, Carissa Collini, who just left us, led that for years. Catherine Keaton before her, and now Ryan Stewart is leading that. They all have just had a heart for this curated community piece and are going to continue working it. But it is an exciting area, and it is one of the things that we actually advise a lot of other organizations around the world on how to do it, because we've actually also found what not to do. So interesting stuff. If you know me, and a lot of you do, one of my passions is what's happening in the world today. When we first got into crowdsourcing, again, I realized that crowdsourcing itself was this amazing thing. But what we quickly found, especially through the freelancing pilots, is that these crowd platforms weren't just doing open innovation prize challenges. They were also doing freelance gig economy type of matching. And when we dug into that more, we found, kind of to our surprise, that there was a huge global migration of workers from full-time out into the gig economy. And in fact, there was one study I quote a lot that says by 2027, there'll be more gig workers in the US than there would be full-time workers. And then COVID hit, and that sped it all up. And now we're all hearing every day in the news headlines, the effects that's having on companies as they're not able to hire because workers don't want to work in full-time situations anymore. A lot of people think that's all from COVID, but it was happening 4 and 5 years before that, and we've been tracking it, and is one of the reasons that we added it to the Noise 2 contract, because one of the things we found was that because technology was outpacing itself in a way that was just unimaginable, that most people weren't appreciating what was really going on in the tech world. And one of the side things too, the benefit or the side effects of that is that the skills that are needed are are translating faster and faster. And so if organizations think they can hire their way out of this rate of change, they have another thing coming. And this gig economy is showing us that there is a way to go access the latest and greatest workers skills out there, but it's not through hiring. It's actually through gig work. It doesn't mean it's not an all or nothing, but we're trying to figure out how to do that. And we've been talking to Ochiko, the human capital folks, and others about how does that work. I will tell you, we already have that on Noise 2, and we've had several task orders that have been looking for experts to go help us with things, and we have gotten some amazing talent for not a lot of money. We're also seeing that entire world. I actually saw John Windsor join a few minutes ago. He has an entire group called Open Assembly that we've been working with in the Center for Transformational Work, where they bring all of these future work folks together in the platforms, and everyone's talking about it. And you meet folks like Lisa Nelson at USA Jobs, who runs USA Jobs. This is something that lots of people are thinking about. And what you're seeing is the platforms are rapidly evolving that technology to improve the trust and background check, to reduce the friction that it takes to actually bring in people that don't work native in your organization because of these changes. So I won't get into all of this, but we're watching this, and we're trying to actually help NASA to be an early adopter of these methods so that we can actually stay competitive in this world that's coming. Probably one of the biggest things that we're working is something we've really worked for a long time, but I will tell you, when Jeff started this, they talked about that there was a case study run on the cultural pushback, and that is now a case study called Houston, We Have a Problem, that's at Harvard Business School, and it's taught in their business school there. And it basically talks about how our scientists and engineers, when they were told, go do this and go do these methods, use these methods, they said no. And so we actually went underground for a long time, and we used what I call boiling the frog, where we basically put together as many challenge success stories as we could. We found people willing to do it. We tried to build a better and better case so that our engineers would be willing to do this and then see the benefits and tell their friends, and it would kind of grow. And that's actually what we're starting to see, to the point now to where our team of about 10 people is currently managing in excess of 90 projects. 90 projects is what we currently are statusing in our weekly. That's great news, except it means we've got to scale. We've got to actually figure out, okay, this is catching on. People are wanting to use this in all projects for all things. We are going to try to do what Jim Ryder said and make this mandatory. But guess what? Making it mandatory doesn't mean it's going to just scale, right? And so we're very much looking at those efforts necessary to do that. So one, we're looking at a program that we're starting to develop where we're going to rotate people through our organization to teach them about how to do this and how to do it with a process that they can take back to their organization, not just spread the word, but actually help execute at that level so that we get that scaling capability. We're looking at how we can work with procurement to embed requirements for open innovation and open talent into all NASA procurements, because there's no reason NASA has to be doing all of this ourselves. Our Boeings, our Lockheeds, our Jacobs, our SAICs, they all should be using crowds as well, because it's all about finding the latest and greatest technology, finding the latest and greatest skills, and applying them to the hard problems that we have at NASA so that we get better results. This is not something we're trying to hold on to. We think it actually has to scale across industry. And then lastly, on the skills piece, we're looking to and have started conversations with our human capital, with our human resources folks, to make sure that we're starting to have those conversations. When someone says, I need someone for this, the automatic response isn't let's go hire somebody, but rather let's go actually out to the gig economy and find some folks to work this. And maybe that will give us a lead on some full-time, or maybe they actually get the job done. And so we're really trying to explore that and enable that to see if we can help the agency really navigate through these times when it's really hard to get talent. Academic research is absolutely something we're going to continue to do with our partners. We are working on methods to get that spread out so we can invite even more universities to participate in that. But we want to continue to look at what makes up crowd incentives. We focused a lot on that up front, and Kareem and his team came up with the 4 Gs: good, guts, glory, and good. I think it was you guys who came up with that, of these incentives. But the reality is it's not all contests anymore. And it's incentives to do work. It's incentives to work on teams. It's incentives to actually get background check. A lot of pieces to this. And we want to watch that and understand it better. New uses for crowds. There's new crowds that are coming out that not only bring you 5,000 submissions, but they actually carve off a set of highly qualified users that can screen those down to a manageable set. If you remember the Space Poop Challenge, which is one I got to work with, it had 5,000 submissions, and it was the poor Hero X guys, because we put it in the contract, that had to go through all 5,000 of those submissions and find only the ones that met our requirements. And trust me when I say that was not a great job for them. I'm pretty sure some of those folks are scarred for life, because I saw some of those submissions. Hybrid configurations for AI and ML. Diane Finkhausen at SocialWorks and in the Tech 7 group of collaboration that's on the Noise 2 has already shown us they have kind of an AI crowd listening tool that they use in combination with crowds. We're starting to see more of that in the matching of finding people in the gig economy crowds. We expect to see more of that, and we need to study that and understand where can that go wrong, where can that help us. There's some great work coming out of University of Chicago and other places where the niche solution pair discovery mechanisms are being studied, and we want to continue that. And then just organizational best practices for infusion and scaling. That is something that we've learned a lot ourselves, but we've learned from a bunch of other folks that we work with and talk with all the time. I'll just say, when we talk about where crowdsourcing is going, I like to talk about crowdsourcing 2.0 as this emerging kind of capability that honestly, and this is me dreaming a little bit in front of a whole bunch of people that are smart, so bear with me, but from what we can tell, the trends are that AI and machine learning are going to take prominent steps in these crowd platforms in helping to match folks up into different situations, to integrate innovation methodologies and take the best of what we know about innovation methodology in terms of, Scamper and Six Hats and all the work of Tina Seelig and others, and start to actually teach crowds how to do that. So you're not just getting the randomness and diversity, you're getting people who know how to tap into and mobilize some of those things. And then AI and machine learning, as I lose my voice, to actually put together high-performing teams where rapidly a crowd of 500,000 people can mobilize 50 teams of 6, each one tailored around the problem in their skill set, but also accounting for diversity and things like personality matches facilitated with a facilitator. Think about how much more that we can do in innovation with that kind of construct, because right now we're limited to fairly narrow problems in some of these crowds because you're working with an individual, and so you can't do systems problems. That was something early on we learned with the laundry challenge on incentive, was a complex multiple discipline system is hard to crowdsource unless you're going to do something like a Centennial Challenge where it's multi-year, multi-million-dollar. And so this capability is just going to grow, and we want to tap into it. So this is my get off the stage, which is really, look, we're going to start scaling with this new program. If you haven't heard, I actually can't say these words, so I'm just going to say that this was mentioned today, that this is happening, and I'll just let you read what was stated earlier, but not from my lips because of the law. And then we're going to really make efforts to integrate into the core business at NASA so that we can scale across the acquisition and human capital pieces and make this part of what we do. So we've been in incubation and scaling now for 10 years, and now we're going to see if we can actually get this out even farther. I'm excited because the folks on this call are largely folks that have been with us and are part of this slog with us. I'm excited about what we've built and where we can go with this. And with that, I just want to say thank you again to the team, to Lynn for all of her work on this event, and more than that, to all of the investment of your life that you've given to this organization, and to all of the vendors, the platforms. You guys are amazing, and you are the real stars of this, that have gathered people to work their passion. And I'm excited. And then, as you can see, we've got amazing management support here at NASA, and that has really enabled us to do some fairly incredible things.